What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Sometimes you just got to click the go live button, gang? Too many things going on with a big, ugly Monday slate. Hopefully your days are going well. Week's off to a good start. Hopefully you guys had good weekends out there. But we're diving headlong into a big, messy one today. We've got 11 games starting at 6:40 on FanDuel. DraftKings running those first 4 games as a turbo slate that I do have up on the site with full DraftKings projections for you guys. That's just separate since we're going to be talking about them on the show anyway. I have the turbo pricing in for those first 4 games, so try and make the beginning of the show a little bit more relevant for the DraftKings folks than it ends up sometimes on a day like this. But I think more to the point, ugly day for weather around the league. I realize I'm a little bit like leaning in too close to the camera here. Let's get back a little bit, back where we're normally situated. Really ugly day for weather, kicking around. Hot day throughout the Midwest. A lot of rain popping up. A lot of yellow and orange on Ross board. I'll pull that up for you in a minute, and we'll talk it through. But also a really ugly day for pitching. There are a few really premium apex predator type aces on the mound across the 2 different slates. But after the first 4 or 5 guys, we're going to see it in just a sec. It goes way down. It's like when you're walking into the ocean and then all of a sudden there's a drop off and you're whoop. It's kind of like that on the mound today. Should be a fun one to talk through. Let me hit the lineups button. I meant to get lineups before the show started. I'm sure a few have come in. We'll let that run in the background here. I just updated the runs board. A few juicy spots standing out for quality. As mentioned, short on pitching. So you see there are a lot of teams in the mid-4s range. They're coming up orange on this board, where on a lot of other days they'd be at least into the yellow formatting, if not green. But we've got a few lower-end games, like the Marlins on their side against Zach Wheeler, really pulling down that number. And slanting things a little bit where, a spot like the Angels at 4.26 implied against Imai, maybe not really standing out like crazy. The 4.53 on the Brewers toward the end of the night rates out fairly well overall as a total. But against some of these, it may just kind of get lost in the weeds a little bit. And there are spots like that throughout, these early games on FanDuel and on that DraftKings Turbo, some mid-4s to work with through there. Real standout spot on that early slate and on the FanDuel main is that Nationals team going up against the corpse of Max Scherzer. They're showing a ridiculous amount of power. Max probably not going to be out there for too long. We haven't seen much of vintage Max or at all, except for the one rehab start that he just made. So I'm expecting them to tee off. That's a big, important piece. We'll get into the game-by-game of it in just a minute. But before we do that, just kind of killing time as people trickle in. Let me pull the boards up here, and we'll take an early look at that. Settle down, buddy. Why don't you go lay down? Joker's wandering through. I also don't know if I like the cat up, by the way. We might get ambushed by a cat flying in from like this direction at some point during the show. I closed the door to the bedroom where I normally stash him, but I wasn't 100% sure if he's in there or not. So keep an eye out for that. If he does do it, the microphone is like right where he would normally land. So that's going to cause all kinds of havoc because my coffee is also like right over here. So it could be really fun and chaotic. So some of you might root for that. Some of you might root for a more tame, peaceful show because we do need to get through this stuff. There's your stacks boards. But before we get into that, you'll notice new contest. I mentioned that I was going to launch a new contest and change it up a little bit. We had a great time, I think, with the home run picks contest. Generated a lot of comments on the videos, which I really appreciate from all you guys. Appreciate them when they just happen organically, but if we need to have contests to make them happen, hey, we'll definitely do that. So I got to change this up. All right, so the new contest. Win yourself a free month of content at Rotoscouts. Same deal, same prize as the home run picks contest. You can use that at any time. So you can use it right now to get baseball through August and into the beginning of football season. You can hang on to it for a couple more weeks and cash it in once football actually starts up. But there's definitely going to be a lot of content coming your way over the next few weeks and few months at rotoscouts with football coming back, basketball and hockey right around the corner, baseball going strong through those months. Gets very, very busy in the fall around here. And you get all of that content on one subscription at rotoscouts for under $1 a day at any time. But right now, win yourself a month. You can also jump in on a weekly, by the way. Free weekly still going on. Promo codes try me for those. Capital T, capital M, all one word for free first week on a weekly to get behind the paywall. Use the baseball content right now. That does renew at regular price, by the way, if not canceled in between. But for the pitching picks contest, I'll get into the content for the show in just a second, I swear. It's staring you guys in the face right now. Free to enter. Leave your pitcher pick of the day as a comment, not in the chat, but as a comment after the video. You got to pick the pitcher who is going to book a quality start, which is 6 innings of 3 runs or fewer allowed, plus 8 or more strikeouts. So we're looking for the premium pitching performances. I'm going to take, much like I did with the home run pick of the day, I'm going to choose a guy to take off the board, one guy per day to take off the board. You guys can't use that guy. A lot of the time, it's going to be just the top projected guy, the top ace of the day. I haven't decided who it'll be. I'll say it as we run down the pitching slate, but I'm going to take one guy off the board so that we don't get too much weight into like the super obvious guy, too many people picking the same guy every day. The goal would be to identify some, value guys for people as we talk through the slate and for you guys to have something to compete over. First to 5 correct picks again wins. This is a multi-day contest. Again, goes into chat. For my sanity, use the same YouTube handle every day. I'm not going to track you across multiple names. One pick per person per day. You guys can use the same picks though. If Jake picks somebody, Andy can also use them, so can Clintwood. It's just you can only use one pick yourself that day, and you can't use the guy I take off the board. All right, let's get into content. This is your weather board. So as mentioned, kind of ugly. A couple orange ones there. I think the most threatened game appears to be that Cincinnati game, which is unfortunate because that also looks like a fantastic spot. Our home run pick of the day comes from that. On the Reds, there are multiple guys over the magic number in my model, multiple guys in the 6+% range in Fangraphs Game Sims. Joker seems excited about the Reds right now, hanging out behind me over here for no good reason. Go lay down, buddy. But that one, we do have some weather concerns. Ross' most recent take is his favorite models is what he's saying is still shows a lot of rain around the ballpark at game time. Maybe it works out to a late start, but definitely threatened. But he says that the National Weather Service is still predicting low precipitation chances, which I think is where this 28% comes from. So he's saying his personal stuff makes it look a lot worse than that 28% might make it look, and that's why he's got it as orange. So a lot of threat, a lot to be aware of crashing into lock with that game on starting off on the DraftKings slate and then being a chunk of time into the slate already on FanDuel with the 4 earlier games included there. So that one could get a little bit bumpy on FanDuel. If you play it, you've got to be really attentive between 6:40 and 7:10 when that game would kick off as to what the scenario is going on there. I currently have Reds in my placeholder lineup, so going to have to be aware of that myself. The Yanks and the White Sox. Yankees facing Noah Schultz with a lot of wind blowing out toward left field. That one, again, per Roth, all weather here, by the way. It's right here on your screen, but at propfinder.app/weather. We're just robbing their board here. And it's per Kevin Roth, a guy we followed for weather for quite a while around here, talk about his weather forecasts all the time. Best in the business for DFS weather. I imagine he rates up there pretty well among just meteorologists in general. Kevin Roth WX on Twitter. Definitely somebody that you should be following if you're doing this at all. And honestly, for season-long fantasy baseball, he does football coverage, does quite a bit, and is very, very good at his job. If you're interested in Weathermen, by the way, the movie Pressure is on, let's say, Peacock. Pretty good. Brendan Fraser playing Eisenhower gets into the go-no-go call around D-Day and how the weather and the meteorologists played into it. Really interesting movie. Well acted, very under the radar kind of a flick that maybe gets a little awards buzz. Who knows? Anyway, the rest of these games just kind of flagged with some rainy, hot, messy, Midwestern type days in some of these spots, and then the New York area, the East Coast, just getting a little bit in the 20s, 16%. You can see the 34% in the Tigers game as far as precipitation goes. Ross take across those. The Pirates game, few showers around. Think the rain stays away. Low chance of delay, but not no chance is his take. The Tigers game, Looks more like a pregame into first pitch rain, not a rain all night. Maybe late start should be okay. Pop-up showers around the park for the Nats. Chance of a delay and could be a little bit bumpy. And I would point out that he doesn't point out. I always like to point out with the Nats, they are a little bit trigger happy with killing games. So just keep that in mind. The Mets, looks like more rain coming through the area around game time, kind of a situation. Should be okay, he says. Wouldn't rule out a delay, particularly toward the later innings. So it sounds like a later evening storm coming through. The beginning of that game ought to be fine. Probably play through it, or maybe you take a break and then go back out there and finish it off. But sounds like we'll have a messy later evening here in the New York area. But the two big concerns are definitely the Reds and the White Sox. For the White Sox game, with the Yanks there with the wind blowing out, he says the actual game time hours are mostly dry. Game should play as a late start and play, but Chicago's getting absolutely poured on all afternoon is what he says. So there would be some just condition concerns about how that field is going to come up with the drainage and everything. So just another spot to keep an eye on. We might just get an early washout in that one. That's one where it's a 7:40 game. We probably know that by 6:40. If that one's going to get wiped out for field condition concerns, they're going to know that the field is flooded and can't be drained in time. And I think we're okay. The Cubbies and the Cards, another spot, just one of those Midwest pop-up showers type spots. So not a spot I'm going to be overly concerned about, but you might see a delay there. So a lot of mess with the weather. A lot of mess with this pitching board. You can see some high quality names down toward the bottom here. And then Brandon Sproat just hanging out with the big boys for some reason. He's facing the Giants out in their ballpark, so that could have a little bit to do with it. But Chase Burns, Max Fried, Zach Wheeler, Peyton Tolley, kind of the class of the slate. Tolley not in a safe situation, but very talented enough to beat that athletics team in their minor league park out in Sacramento. You've got some back and forth, obviously, across the stacked board in terms of the two different slates. I don't have the slate ranked for the DraftKings Turbo, but you can kind of use the FanDuel rankings for that slate where you see the NAs on the DraftKings side anyway. You can see a somewhat straight line through the top end Vegas totals. Again, remember, the board, we'll get back into it in just a sec, but with all those teams colliding in like the 4-2s to 4-5s, there's a lot of just super tight spots like right through here again, where these teams project out a lot of similarity. A big chunk of that is on the early games, so less relevant to the DraftKings slate unless you're playing that turbo. Top of the board, we get the Nats just looking fantastic. Second by home run, second by Vegas. Premium stack on the 4-game turbo on DraftKings. Top of your board, second by value on FanDuel. Just facing, again, just the bloated corpse of Max Scherzer at this point. He just doesn't have it anymore. Maybe he comes out and twirls a gem for 5 innings in his vintage Max. He did do that in AAA the other day in a rehab outing, but I'm pretty skeptical against a very, very high-quality, hard-hitting Nationals lineup. The Cubbies looking solid against Liberatore, and that's what I forgot to point out on the weather board. Amidst all these games, with some reasonable hitting conditions, with some decent wind opportunities in a couple spots, this St. Louis game really stands out at 96 degrees today. Wind blowing out at just 5 miles an hour, but still blowing out. But 96 degrees is going to be render those pitchers a little bit vulnerable. So I think that's a really interesting spot. Maybe grab some Cubbies bats against Liberatore. He's found some Ks in his recent outings, but definitely some high quality Cubs bats. The Red Sox on their side of that game out in Sacto looked pretty decent against Jack Perkins, but like we talked about with him the last time out, a little bit better under the surface than he actually has been pitching. I think he gave up 3 early runs on a homer in that game and then settled down, was actually pretty decent through that one and limited the other team. I forget who it was that he had faced, but definitely a dangerous situation here for Jack Perkins. I don't think we're going in his direction. Just wouldn't completely stun me if he limited that somewhat overrated Red Sox team. They're going to get really popular as the top Vegas total of the day as well, but definitely they're usable. The Reds, again, super interesting. They're going up against Slade Ciccone. They're pulling the #1 home run mark, also tops by value on DraftKings, third on the DraftKings main slate by projections, but right there with the Cubbies and the Red Sox, fourth across FanDuel. Had to give them a little bit of a nudge to put them in their proper place. I think get them out in that home ballpark. A lot of upside against Ciccone. And again, the home run pick of the day comes out of that game. Just got to hope it plays clean, and we're in business there. Toronto facing opener Eddie Yeen and then Messi lefty in Andrew Alvarez. Definitely looking appealing on FanDuel. It's a low-end Toronto squad, but you get a lot of balls in play, not a lot of strikeout upside facing them. First by FanDuel value just because of how they've scuffled for actual run creation, any kind of power upside or anything interesting. They've gotten very, very cheap, so they're an incredibly usable team, but I don't know how much we need them unless you're really trying to claw your way up to the top expensive pitchers of the day who are all going to be crushingly popular. The Cards, probably more interesting on the DraftKings slate where they rate in a tie for third with the Reds. 6th by value, only 20th by home run upside. That's something I got to point out. I did just call that game out for the quality of the 96 degrees and how that should favor hitting pretty significantly. But pretty much throughout his entire career, David Peterson has actually been somewhat effective at limiting home run quality. So it does have an impact on the Cards' home run number. You also take a couple of their bats and knock them a little bit facing a lefty in terms of like the Alec Burlesons, Lawrence Newpars of the world. You do get upside around Jordan Walker and some of the right-handed bats, of course, but Peterson also an effective pitcher on top of his ability to limit runs. So I struggled with him a little bit today. He's going to be probably, higher on the pitching board than anybody would necessarily want, but he's one of the few quality arms despite the conditions. So a little bit of back and forth with the Cards there, but they rate out for enough value and they project out strongly enough that I think they're incredibly usable on both sites. They're bats we like up and down that lineup. We've talked about them quite a bit this season. And you get the value out of like an Ivan Herrera on a short DraftKings slate coming out of a premium spot with the conditions favoring him. It's just that little nudge down the board for home run quality that's standing out as the 20th ranked team there. The Pirates against super gettable Merrill Kelly. Very, very interesting for quality in the middle of the board. FanDuel, 7th, 11th for projections and value. Incredibly playable team on the DraftKings slate. Probably more of a standout team among those DraftKings turbo teams. The Diamondbacks just kind of in the middle of the board. They're going up against Mitch Keller, not to be mistaken with Merrill Kelly. We've got Mitch Keller, Merrill Kelly, and we've got multiple maxes on this slate. So you don't want to mix those picks up. One max down here, the other max up there. In terms of guys on the mound, I don't really want Merrill Kelly or Mitch Keller. I'd rather have the bats on either side, but I think I'd rather have Pirates against Kelly more than Diamondbacks against Keller, if that makes sense. The Yankees squarely in the middle of the board, just obviously messy conditions there. Noah Schultz has not yet been as advertised as one of the top lefty pitching prospects in baseball. Yankees lineup greatly diminished of late, though. Still waiting on Aaron Judge's comeback. They just lost Belly to the IL. Still deadly, particularly against shaky lefties, but there's a lot lacking in that Yankees lineup right now. That said, where they land on a board like this, with news like that lingering with bad conditions, there's a lot leading up to the conclusion that the Yankees might be a little bit low owned among the guys still available in the lineup today. The Brewers kind of hit the middle of the board against Tyler Mahle, an entirely gettable pitcher. Not showing a ton of power in that late game. There's not a ton of run quality visible in that late game, but I think they're very usable just for their run creation dynamics in that lineup. Phillies, no sweat with them against Tyler Phillips, but impacted by that 12th ranked Vegas total sliding down the board a little bit, but they're one of those teams with believable upside against like a mid-4s implied total, so it's not like they're rendered unusable. The Orioles show an interesting value. Also, both those teams premium for home run value. So sorry to so much into the stacks board here, but I just think it's a really interesting slate to talk through again. Where we're seeing back and forth and different reasons to go to some of these teams where, teams like this, that high quality offenses with a lot of power showing against incredibly gettable pitchers, just kind of dropping into the middle of the board because of how even more gettable some of these other guys are. I think that, both of those teams, again, would probably stand out a little bit more impactfully on that DraftKings Turbo slate where there's only 8 options to choose from than they do where they're 11th and 12th on this FanDuel main. So they're probably more interesting to the FanDuel side, more important to the DraftKings side, if that makes sense. Not a lot of value showing on Atlanta, but they're another usable team coming up 7th by home run upside. Zach Thornton had some good stretches through the minors, limiting power. But he had some bumps in the minors this year with home runs in a short sample. Nothing egregious, but certainly enough to give a little bit of credence to the idea that some of those heavy-hitting Atlanta bats could find quality today. But they don't project out great from a points per dollar sense. The Mets look a little bit better from that perspective, particularly on DraftKings as the second ranked team. And then we start hitting a little bit of the lower end. I do think the Angels pulling fourth ranked home run upside with a value mark that looks pretty good on DraftKings, less so on FanDuel, are interesting against Imai. We just attacked that spot the other day with the Marlins, and he got us bad. He had a pretty good outing, put up like 40 FanDuel points that day. But for all the reasons we talked about that day, with a little bit of visible power, some problematic numbers in some hiding spots, I wouldn't rule out some Angels upside, and there's some power bats showing there for sure. The Astros are kind of the other side of that coin. Wilbert Urena, pretty good at taking the power away, but that's a quality enough offense. They rank 9th across the board on the DraftKings slate, but 22nd by home run quality, 13th overall on the full board by Vegas total. Does put them into the middle, puts them as a usable offense. Kyle Bradish is very good. I do not buy the Tigers necessarily as the 11th highest Vegas total on the board. But again, there's so much back and forth where we're talking about 2/100ths of a point, 2/10ths of a point or whatever, separating those teams that it's not really worth quibbling about. But I have healthy respect for Kyle Bradish, and the Tigers, I think, make sense where they are. Wouldn't completely knock me out of my chair if they put a few runs on them, hit a homer though. And then we get down toward the bottom of the board. Peyton Tolley doing his best to suppress the Athletics. Lefty going into that lineup, missing some pieces still. Home run upside for sure. That ballpark definitely favors offense, but that's a high-quality pitcher. And then already talked about the obvious pitchers in the matchups at the bottom of the board there speak for themselves. Getting back to the Vegas of it. So, O's and the Tigers, Kyle Bradish against Cater Montero. Montero had a decent stretch early in the year. He had a good one the last time out. 5 1/3 against the Cubs at Wrigley. 1 earned run on 3 hits, struck out 8. The earned run came on a homer. Prior to that, he had slid into a bulk relief role. Been kind of up and down. Pitched mostly well through short outings in that stretch. Had hit a bumpier stretch in like the beginning of the second third of the season, if that makes sense. Clunky way to put it. Where did it actually start? Yeah, like May 14th. Started a run of starts where across like 7 starts, he was giving up 3-4 runs most of the outings. That bent the numbers somewhat. 3.14 ERA on the season, though, but does have a 4.41 xFIP under the surface. Also just not as good as maybe he seems to some. So I'm more interested in Orioles bats going against him, I think. And I'm less interested in Tigers bats. Vegas has it the other way around. Both those teams are usable in the mid-4s. The Phils against the Marlins. The lowest end team on the board is the Marlins going up against Zach Wheeler. He's been mostly tremendous across his 16 starts on the year, a 2.16 ERA. Not all that betrayed by a 2.92 xFIP, 2.76 Sierra. Fire away with Zach Wheeler on the DraftKings Turbo on the FanDuel slate if you can reach that price tag. Going the other way, the Phils against Tyler Phillips. He's made 10 starts, 79 1/3, 3.52 ERA, but a 4.69 xFIP on the season. I think targetable enough with some high-quality Phillies bats, particularly, again, when they're maybe a little bit less visible to the board at a 4.30 implied total. Very interesting spot for them. Hit a pitcher-friendly park down in Miami, but those Phillies bats can definitely provide upside. The D-backs, the Pirates. Premium totals on both sides. I think we're looking to this game for a little bit of offense against Merrill Kelly and Mitch Keller, the 2 MKs on the board. So fire away with bats on either side of that one. Both those teams do look good. Slightly prefer the Pirates with, I think, a little bit more true upside. And just they've been so successful at scoring runs this season that I think I would lean that way towards some Pittsburgh bats. But the Diamondbacks right there with them. And then just in love with this spot with the Nationals going up against Max. 5.25 implied total, the second highest on the board. And honestly, I don't know. For my money, that's the true highest total spot on the board because I would much rather have their bats, even ballpark considered and everything, than face a pitcher who has been bad on the season but is better under the surface. And Jack Perkins with that Red Sox team. I'm not saying that they're at a bad total here, but call it that, and we'd be saying 5.25 against 5.18. And I think that's probably your true number. It was a half run that I took away the other day when we were talking about Perkins. Exact same kind of a thing. Just worse conditions for him today and more believability for the Red Sox upside. But love the Nats at the 5.25, showing a ton of power against Max Scherzer. And then don't sleep on the Blue Jays going back the other direction against the opener and a very gettable Andrew Alvarez. Slate Ciccone against Chase Burns in the bandbox in Cincinnati, feeding plenty of upside toward the Reds. Several guys well above the magic number and showing a ton of power upside from the Reds lineup. On the other side of that one, it's the other high-end pitching spot of the day with Chase Burns on the mound going for the Reds against that low-end Guardians lineup. 3.84 implied total for them. They do have Jose Ramirez back. They've got some very usable bats, but Chase Burns is when he's going right, another level of pitcher. The ballpark can favor bats, but that doesn't really give me enough reason to go to the Guardians. Maybe if you're looking to be contrarian against what will be a ludicrously popular pitcher, you could talk me into some cheap Guardians around the stars and the high-quality guys, but that'll be an angle that people do take, and I'd prefer to go in other directions. There's going to be enough low-owned spots. Where were we? Braves and the Mets even up 4.55 implied totals on either side of that game. It's Martin Perez against Zach Thornton. I think we're going bats on both sides of that one. Mets diminished by yet another injury to a star. Juan Soto back out of the Mets lineup, but still a lot of usability, still a lot of depth, even with their ongoing lack of quality for the season. We talk about that frustrating Mets team a lot. I am more interested is strong. Equally willing to use the Braves, and definitely we've gotten more out of the Braves this season, I think is the right way to say that. If we lose the White Sox game, the pitching slate becomes even more problematic because I think we're interested in Max Fried at the top of the board. Came back on the 22nd, faced the Pirates, went 5 innings, struck out 7, had a tremendous Max Fried-esque kind of a start, allowed 1 hit to the 16 hitters that he faced. I don't think he's fully on board for, Max isn't going out there and putting up a complete game tonight, but I think 6 is reasonably in the cards if he's going right against a gettable White Sox squad. Sub 4 implied total for the White Sox. Yanks speak for themselves at a 4.65, even with that diminished total against Noah Schultz. We just need the game to play. Cubbies and the Cards in the 90 near 100-degree heat. Cubs pulling a near 5 implied total, going up against Matthew Liberatore. And then coming back the other way, it is David Peterson on the mound, who already mentioned the potential suppression of the home run ball a little bit, but you can see that healthy 4.65 implied total on the Cardinal side. So bats on both sides of that one, I think, outside of some desperation plays for cheap value on a board that's very, very lacking on the mound. So we will be talking about both those pitchers. Buckle up. Imai facing the Angels, another back-and-forth pitching spot that probably will play for value today. Wilbert Urena at a higher price on the other side of that game is the better of those two starters right now. He's been very good at suppressing the long ball overall. Has some strikeout ability as well, 83 Ks and 87 and a third, peaking at a couple 7 strikeout games, but an 8 strikeout game way back at the beginning of the season. More recently, a few 7 strikeout, few 6 strikeout outings across reasonable opportunity to book 6 here, but not entirely safe either. The Astros and the Angels both pulling mid-4s implied total. So again, don't be fooled and don't sleep on those orange spots with the mid-4s totals. Any one of those spots is quality enough. Red Sox already spoke to Jack Perkins' underlying quality, but they're very visible at a near 5.5 implied total in one of the best hitting ballparks in the league. And then on the other side of that one, the A's pulling in at 4.15 implied total, not completely dead in the water against Peyton Toley, but a diminished version of that Athletics lineup, and Toley's very good on the mound. Brewers and the Giants wrapping things up. Again, maybe the Brewers get slept on a little bit. Late night hammer action there, 4.54 implied total. They're going up against a super gettable Tyler Mahle. He's pitched to a 5.31 ERA, but a 4.24 xFIP under the surface. Handful of strikeouts here and there, but he's given up 13 homers in 83 innings, 16 starts on the year. There's power in that Brewers lineup. There's that run creation engine we like to talk about. Maybe getting sneaky, but a pitcher-friendly park, not great hitting conditions at the end of the night. Brendan Sproat, suppressing the Giants a little bit more to that 4.05 implied total that they're pulling in at. That has been a better lineup in recent weeks than it was at the beginning of the season. Sproat, 5.09 ERA, but a serviceable 4.33 xFIP under the surface. Interesting for strikeouts with 91 in 86 and 2/3. I don't think we're necessarily going to him on the mound, but I don't know that the Giants bats are all that interesting at that low total in a pitcher-friendly park. How's that for a doubleheader rundown on the slate? Hopefully you guys are doing well out there. We say hi to some folks in the chat. Clint Wood, Pirates Baseball, Rabbit Holes here, Jake Swales, Andy, Tall Tail, what's going on, bud? Meech, good to see everybody. If you guys weren't here a few minutes ago. Let me just pull it back up here real quick. We've already summarized the slate twice, and we're going to go through it again, talking about the pitching options back and forth, and then we'll get into the game by game as usual. But let me pull this up again. There's your stacks board for one. We just did a deep dive into that. But if you weren't here at the beginning of the show, I'm bringing back a new contest. Win yourself a free month of content at Rotoscouts. You can use it now. You can use it once football starts back up. You can hang on to it till later into the fall when the hockey and basketball are back to whatever you want. But we're focused on pitchers with the contest this time around. Got to enter with a comment after the show ends, not in the chat, but with a comment on the video. You're picking the pitcher who's going to book a quality start, which is 6 innings of 3 or fewer earned runs allowed, plus 8 or more strikeouts on this slate. I'm going to take one guy off the board. You cannot use the guy I take off the board. 1 pick per person per day. Has to come from the slate we're discussing on the show, but for DraftKings purposes, that is the full 11-game slate that we'll talk about across the Turbo and FanDuel. Got to be the same YouTube handle every single day. Can't use my guy. 1 pick per person per day. First to 5 correct picks wins. Go get them. So here's your pitching board. Got to decide who I'm going to take off the board. See, now I'm going to wrestle with it because the correct answer is probably Zach Wheeler, because the rain might take Chase Burns off the board for me. I'm going to strategize against you guys with this one. And then I really don't like anybody else on the board to book a quality start and 8 strikeouts. Somebody's going to go out and do it, though. You got Kyle Radish there. Totally could do it. Fried could get there. The Ks are visible enough. The depth would be my question with Max. Again, coming back with only 5 innings the last time out. Maybe we don't get the full 6, but we probably do. A lot of uglier spots, though, to get into the pitching slate. Wheeler, Burns, I think the clear class of this one. Even pitching in his home park, the bandbox there, it's just such a gettable version of the Guardians overall, with the couple few decent bats in that lineup and then a lot of meh. And Burns, when he's going right, premium strikeout pitcher, very, very talented up at the top of the board. He's super expensive. He's more expensive than Wheeler against the Marlins on the DraftKings slate. Excuse me, that's first one out of the gate, and I already screwed it up. The guys flagged in yellow are on the DraftKings Turbo slate. So Chase Burns is your top projected pitcher, but you can see the price difference on DraftKings is what I should be saying. 11-3 on your full DraftKings board against no one else priced above even 9,000. Zach Wheeler at 10-7 on the Turbo slate for DraftKings. Probably the class of that one where you're getting Wheeler, Montero and Bradish are on that slate, right? See, now this is... yeah. So on your DraftKings Turbo, just like it lines up there, I think Wheeler and Bradish are the clear class of that slate at 10-7 and 87. You probably could get to combinations of those two guys, but it's going to be popular and probably prohibitively expensive against that popularity to be doing that on that short slate. So that gets kind of bumpy. But then you're talking about, you got to embrace Merrill Kelly and Mitch Keller and Cater Montero, he's in reverse, but another KM guy. They're all fairly priced for the ugliness of those spots. Among those guys, I probably am taking the shot with Cater Montero, but he's uniquely high priced among those 3 and not that far separated from Kyle Bradish, which isn't great. And we're seeing upside for those Orioles bats. So that's some ugly back and forth. And then you get to just like unusable options down here. There's no appeal in Alvarez in a bulk relief role, Tyler Phillips against the Phillies max or the opener. So good luck getting different with any kind of construction on that DraftKings Turbo. On FanDuel, the full slate, Wheeler, Burns, again, competitively priced with one another. I do think that Zach should be priced with that much separation going up against the Marlins, the newly scuffling Marlins. Did they get a win over the weekend? They were on a pretty long losing streak. Marlins are now 0 for their last 10 at least. Down to a 491 win percentage on the year, 52 and 54, 10.5 back of the NL East. So it hasn't been that interesting frisky Marlins team, and Zach Wheeler just one of the best in baseball, full stop. Burns, fully believable, though. If you need to save a little bit of money, as long as that game plays, I have absolute faith in Chase Burns and aggressive ceiling, competitive with Zach Wheeler and significantly above everybody else on the board. Max, your only limitation potentially is innings or the game not playing. Talked about the threat that Peyton Toley's under toward the end of the night. 8,800 makes Toley really interesting, though, on DraftKings, on the full DraftKings board. That's a really cheap price for that talent. I think they're giving a little bit too much credit to the ballpark there, especially with the Athletics somewhat diminished. Bradish, very important on FanDuel at the 95. Perfectly willing to use him to attack a Tigers lineup that has a lot of inconsistency and plenty of strikeout in it. There's a little bit of danger for power showing against, but he is very, very talented, and I continue to think Vegas is seeing him half a run off in the wrong direction. Imai at 76.68, like I mentioned, is going to be an important piece for value on, I think, both sites. I think he's going to be usable enough on FanDuel. We just saw the quality. He burnt us last time out when we used the Marlins to attack him. 6,800 on DraftKings, a very, very important bargain bin piece over there, and probably safer conditions for Imai facing the Angels than David Peterson and all the heat with some visible run upside on the Vegas board for a little bit less. Peterson was basically fully stretched out in his most recent start. 6 2/3 against the Tigers on the 21st after the All-Star break. 3-hitter. Struck out 4, walked 1. Overall on the season, he's given up 9 home runs in 12 outings, 89 innings. I would say more concerning to that, for what I was talking about with his potential to limit power. He didn't give up a homer in that outing. But since he went back to the rotation, 4 outings in a row, he did give up 1 home run. And then a few of his relief appearances, his bulk relief appearances prior to getting stretched back out, he had given up a home run. So he did have a little stretch of allowing some oddball power there. Just something to keep an eye on. But again, at this price, at least in the mix, despite the conditions, despite the heat. But that one's going to be interesting. No real faith in Imai, but talented enough to find some Ks against an Angels lineup that has them. On the other side of that game, 93-83, I think it just works differently with Walbert Urena, price where he is, but does have a little bit of strikeout potential. It's not a great matchup for Ks facing that Astros lineup, but he's also talented at keeping the ball down, limiting home run upside, so he has an impact for that. I just don't love him at price. He's probably going to be a lot more important to your full DraftKings slate than the 93 on FanDuel. That just kind of renders him an also ran. If I'm at 93 and I cannot make another change to my bats to get the extra 200 to get to Kyle Bradish, then so be it. I'll take my chances there. I certainly like him better than, say, Zach Thornton at 97 against the Braves, Slade Ciccone at 9,000 inexplicably against the Reds in that ballpark. So through that lens, he does work. But there's also the argument to be made that if you can't get to Bradish and you're questionable on Urena at that price, maybe we're just leaving money on the table and embracing, say, a David Peterson at 68 and Imai at 76, and that most definitely can buy you more than one bat upgrade if those are available to you. Like if you've made a positional compromise, I took a $2,200 second baseman to fill a role thinking I could get to Bradish, but it didn't work out. Go back, replace that guy with the higher end bat, a one-off, so be it, because there's just going to be a lot of those builds in play today. Already talked about the ugliness through here. On FanDuel, all those guys in the 8s, not all that appealing. Any one of those 3 guys, and I would probably go so far as to say one of those 3 guys. In other words, taking it to one of those 3 guys probably does versus anything could happen with one of those guys. I would venture to guess that one of those 3 guys has a pretty decent start today and pretty usable. Just have a problem putting my finger on which one of those guys it's going to be because I don't like any of those 3 pitchers or any of those 3 spots. Cater Montero is probably your best bet. But again, I do like the look of the Orioles on the other side. Molly against the Brewers. Again, I'm looking to get some Brewers, I think, at the end of the night against a really bad, mostly version of Tyler Molly. 78-71 doesn't even work great from the price by comparison to guys projected above him or right around him. Noah Schultz, pretty hard no against the Yankees, even the diminished version. And I forgot to call it out, but you guys can see the the shelf here, right? Like we just fall off a cliff after British projection-wise. There's a 5-point gap there, FanDuel. It's closer between him and Imai, I'd say, and maybe some of these other guys on DraftKings by a little bit, but there's an appreciable quality gap there. Thornton, at those prices, no thank you. Sprout, probably not. Gettable Giants lineup, probably at 73, more important on DraftKings. 6,900 for Martin Perez, even at 74 on FanDuel, I did give him at least a little bit of loose consideration. No Soto in the Mets lineup, scuffling version of the Mets up and down, but again, a lot of depth there. And Martin Perez has been a mix and match quality value pitcher for the better part of the last half decade or more. Cicconi's a target for bats. Even on DraftKings at the 75, I just don't see it. There's limited quality there, limited angle for value, and you've got so much value above him on the board that it's not worthwhile. Perkins, pretty hard no. Alvarez, Tyler Phillips, Liberatore. Liberatore, I would say, actually is at least worth consideration at 67. He's broken off enough interesting starts. Bad conditions there in St. Louis today. But at 67, he could give you quality as an SP2. So he's the guy hiding down the bottom amid those guys on the other slate. At 81 on FanDuel, the upside is a little bit limited at that price on this board, but a dart you could maybe consider from time to time. That was a lot of ugliness to carve our way through at the beginning of the show. Meech says, Imai or Wheeler, easy game on FanDuel. Yeah, sometimes those decisions make themselves, and just embracing the chalk and getting different in other ways makes a lot of sense, eh? Let's get into some game by game here. All right, so important to keep in mind, regardless of what comes out of my mouth about these first 4 games on DraftKings, as far as how they might relate to the main slate, just ignore me. I'll probably stumble once or twice at least as I go through this, talking about the DraftKings. Just know these first 4 ones, these prices are that turbo slate on DraftKings. Everything's included on the main slate on FanDuel. Just to clear that up real quick. Let's see if any more lineups came in. A handful of lineups are in. Nothing crazy yet. Hit the like button. I forgot to mention that when I hit the lineups button. If you haven't already, hit the like button for me. Subscribe to the channel if you're feeling it. Also, jump into the Discord. If you scroll down to the description for the video down there, there's a pretty clear link where the Discord is linked in. Discord's entirely free. No need to be a subscriber at the website or on the YouTube channel or anything. Just come jump in, join the community. I'm always trying to call things out in the Discord. If there's any notes about the slate or like side notes you guys need to know about what's going on schedule-wise, I'm always putting them in there. Plus, just a pretty good community of folks hanging out, rooting for each other, sharing their picks. There's also a lively WNBA chat in there in the basketball channel that I have zero to do with. But those guys are taking down slates and doing kind of well. So you might want to check that out. Our guy Seth took down the PGA for 100K the other day on FanDuel. Maybe ask Seth a little bit about golf. I know golf, but I've never tried to project it. Maybe one day. What we need is a few more subscribers. Tell your friends, build up the subscription base, and then we can do interesting things like putting golf on the site, building out like a sim tool and stuff. Current population, keeping the lights on. Need a few more people. Anywho, speaking of a few more people, if you want to get behind the scenes, use the projections tonight and all week long. Promo code TRYME, all one word, capital T, capital M, gets you behind the scenes free first week on a weekly subscription. No commitment necessary. Cancel anytime. If it's not canceled after the first week, it will renew at regular price. That's under $1 a day, $6.93 a week on the weekly plan. Monthly and quarterly is also available. And we're crashing rapidly into football season. I was thinking this weekend about how much I have ahead of me, and really got to start trying to eat the elephant, as they say, on my football preview that I'm going to do for the going into the season. I got to do some football season-long rankings, which I'll have up on the site. I decided I'm not going to do best ball rankings for football. There's just too much competition in that space, and it's just not something I personally play. I did do best ball for baseball because there's just so much less in that space. I thought it made sense to get in there with try and compete with some rankings, and that just speaks to me a little bit more. But keep an eye out. Football rankings, football content coming at you fast and furious over the next few weeks. Baltimore Orioles 4.22 implied. Tigers 4.38 implied. Kyle Bradish, already talked about him a few times, but 113 and a third, 20 starts deep. He's at a 23.1% strikeout. Few too many walks at 10.7%. Definitely a problem for him, but he makes it work. He's able to carve his way through when he gets in trouble a little bit. 10.6% swinging strike rate keeps him interesting for a little bit of K-based upside. 3.49 ERA, but some more problems under the surface. 4.01 xFIP, 4.29 Sierra. Pretty decent at limiting premium contact, though, and that helps him keep the run scoring in line unless he makes a mistake. The ball's not getting out of the ballpark that frequently. 2.52% home run allowed on a 9.7 degree average launch. Good at inducing weak and medium contact, 37.3% hard hits. This is what I continue to say when we see these high mid-fours implied totals for up and down type squads like the Tigers against Kyle Bradish. I don't really get it. It's just feeding through that walk rate to a degree. You do have three guys who are drawing double-digit walk rates in this Tigers lineup, but patience is not really the name of their game. So they don't bounce all that well off the walk rate anyway. And there are plenty of strikeouts here, specifically among some of their very best bats. Even Riley Green, good as he is at hitting for average, getting on base and so forth, striking out at nearly a 27% rate. Last year was 30.7. Year before was nearly 27. Torque strikes out against everybody. This year it's back up at 32.6%. So plenty of targets here for Bradish to rack up a few additional Ks, maybe get himself, 1 and 4 or even a little bit better. Going the other direction, Cater. Again, pitching with a reasonable amount of quality, especially on the surface this season. 3.14 ERA looks nice, but the 4.41 xFIP, the 4.28 Sierra, if you want a nice tiebreaker, the 13.4 strikeout minus walk, all in support of the underside rather than the upside. Sub 20% strikeout, but a tidy 5.3% walk rate. I think where he's been maybe most interesting is limiting premium contact, just 38% hard hits, 88.6 miles an hour of exit velocity, amounting to a 2.39% home run rate. That's relatively believable. He hasn't had a big collision of heavy launch angle and extreme exit velocity, but he is a fly ball trajectory pitcher. 16.7 degree average launch allowed. There are some real home run hitters on the other side. They can get under one, put one in the seats, and generate a significant amount of exit velocity on their own. So not entirely safe for what may be a little bit of lurking premium contact downside there, or just a bad day for home run to fly ball, which can just be incidental stuff. So something to be aware of on the downside with Montero. He's very usable, but he's also, again, not a premium strikeout guy by rate. Also just an 8.3% swinging strike rate. So when you look at these Orioles, what's their big problem? It's flailing up at the plate, trying to swing out of their shoes a lot of the time, striking out at a 25% rate as a group. But he, again, going this way, doesn't bounce great off of that with his low strikeout and his inability to induce swinging strikes. So I think we're limiting the potential for him to rack up strikeouts even against a free swinging group like this. Maybe it goes the other way and he's able to find them. Certainly there's the option for that side to come up. But I lean toward the Orioles with a little bit more upside for them to make their good contact today. Dylan Beavers, interesting at the top of the lineup, 29 on DraftKings Turbo, only 26 on FanDuel, easily puts him on the value board. He's got a little potential to create more premium contact than he has so far. He's drawn a double-digit walk rate in a medium sample, 180 plate appearances. Getting on base at a 335 clip, I think, is interesting as a table setter, ahead of Pete Alonso, Gunnar Henderson, the true power bats in this lineup. And then we get to interesting guys like Taylor Ward, who's sliding back down the lineup, maybe starts looking for a little bit more of his previous power upside. So far this season hasn't really found the barrel, hasn't really found the home run ball, was mostly focused on getting on base, setting the table when he was hitting higher up in the lineup. So just maybe doing a different thing coming into this one, 4,400, 3,000, even if he's just providing the on base and correlated scoring potential from the heart of the lineup, leading into some playable value bats down lineup. I think Taylor Ward's interesting through any lens. Leody Taveras, 3,000, 2,700. We like Leody more when he's a just last man in value piece. Hitting in the middle of the lineup, a little bit shaky. Hasn't really hit the ball all that hard this season or found that much success. Just an 88 WRC plus. That's a somewhat concerning piece for the Orioles value upside, but he's a switch hitter, does have better seasons under his belt than what he's done in 319 chances this year. Jackson Holiday is really interesting. Underappreciated season for quality for counting stats last year. hit 17 home runs, stole 17 bags in his 649 chances, had a okay slash line. This isn't a complete disaster at 242, 314, 375. Just a 304 weighted on base, but a slightly better, still below average 313 xWOBA. Last year, he's pushed those numbers a little bit. 317 actual is better than that 313 X from last year. 325 X is better than his 317 actual, and it's also above average. He's got a 341 on base across 173 plate appearances now. He's got a 104 WRC plus. He's been a positive run creator. This is a player that people think is a bust. Somebody mentioned, I forget who it was. I forget who said it, and I forget who they were talking about. But somebody called out a player we were talking about on, I think, Friday's show as, hey, that's next year's Jordan Walker. Give me Jackson Holliday as a really interesting guy for that next year Jordan Walker medal around his neck at the end of the year. We'll get there. We'll decide who it really is. There's a lot of interesting things about Jackson Holliday and a ton of prospect pedigree with this kid. And for our purposes today, going to the Orioles lineup, 34, 27, second base, totally works. And people are going to sleep on that spot. Kobe Mayo is interesting for his ability to put bat on ball, 11.2% barrel, 49.3% hard hit, 13 home runs on the board, and a whole lot of ugliness other than that. But if you're going to this team, we're looking for a little bit of power upside to come through. We're looking for the home run to fly ball. And when we talk about guys who can generate their own exit velo, a guy hitting the ball that hard certainly can. He also strikes out a lot. That could be a victim of a unlikely Cater Montero strikeout, but I lean toward the power, and he's nice and cheap at a key position. Jeremiah Jackson found some success earlier in the season, but he's down to a 268 on base, a 290 xWOBA under his ugly actual WOBA, 83 WRC plus, and then Jagrick Chomp, just a mixer at catcher, nothing real there. On the Tiger side, the 438 implied total, again, feels a little high. That puts him right in the mix with a lot of the teams we talked about where they're kind of hidden in orange today, these mid-fours implied totals. I like them a little bit less, I think, than some of those other teams, just because of the respect I have for Connor Bradish and his quality. But it is a Tigers team I like talking about. We've used them a ton. We've talked about them a ton to mixed success through the year. But they've got some interesting lefties. You know, maybe we're talking about a little bit of Kevin McGonigal with all his quality. Those are still fair prices at 48.33. 9 home runs, 11 steals, 387 on base. Kid's been incredible, hit the ground running in the show. Dylan Dingler has hit a bunch of home runs, 22 on the season and counting in 400 plate appearances. Also, I think mostly more interesting maybe is the 275, 342, 532 that goes with it. 374 weighted on base with a 381 xWOBA in support of it, a 142 WRC plus. He did similar things at the plate last year, but not to the extremes for quality. The average was there, but the on base was a little bit lacking. The slug was way off the mark. The ISO was different despite the 13 home runs and 469 chances this year. He's just made major strides at the plate, and it's showing across his full slash line. I think people think of him as just more empty power, and he's looking like more than that. 4,800, 3,600, incredibly usable on both sites. Probably more important to the DraftKings Turbo. Colt Keith, nice and cheap at 34.26. He's hit 8 home runs, stolen 4 bases. I think where he's really lacking visibly is in that 299 on base. Big dip year over year in the walk rate, crashing from 10.3 last year, basically cut in half. He's still been good for strikeout, right around where his career norms have been. Lost a little bit for barrel, a little bit for hard hit year over year. We talked about him at the end of last year as potentially being interesting this season. Hasn't fully lived up to it. Missed a little bit of time that cost him. An interesting enough 321 xWOBA lurking under the surface, at least puts him around the league average, but has been underwhelming. But that's reflected entirely by the price. It's a great spot in the lineup if you're going to this team, and he fills key positions. So don't write Colt Keith off just yet. And if you're going to the Tigers, I do think he's a fairly high priority bat, at least as a mixer and a cost offset. Riley Green, again, their best bat, 15 homers, a 370 on base. The strikeouts are the one off part about it, but they come against a 12.2% walk rate, so they're in no way concerning. Makes fantastic contact, would be the highest priority hitter in this lineup to throw at Bradish here. Spencer Torkelson would be in that mix as well, but I expect a few Ks out of Torque tonight. Maybe he gets into one, though. We're just looking for that one cheap piece of premium contact. He's only 36.29 across sites. He's hit 19 home runs. There's just no consistency whatsoever in his game, so it becomes a little shaky and a lot of zeros in your life if you're just going to him consistently. But this is a guy who at at 31 home runs last year, 37 the year before that, 31 the year before that. So, I mean, the power is very clear and very real with Spencer Torkelson. Then we get to some mixers. McKinstry, Hae-Yu Lee, Matt Vierling. Any one of those guys in a lineup is at least okay, just as filler positionally for cheap cost. Hae-Yu Lee has been at least interesting. 189 plate appearances, 6 home runs, 274, 309, 441, a 108 WRC plus. I just question how real it actually is. 9% barrel, but only a 38.8% hard hit, and a concerning 293 xwOBA under the OK 325 actual. Continue to think James Outman is interesting from the bottom. 4 home runs, 6 stolen bases. I believe he hit a home run, I want to say either over the weekend, maybe it was the end of last week. But 2,500, 2,200, we've looked at it enough in terms of his year going back like 4 years ago now, how interesting he was in a 2020 type campaign. I forget if he actually got there, but forgive me. A really interesting season for homers and steals while with the Dodgers. But the last couple seasons has been a total disaster. Gotten himself DFA'd a couple times, currently striking out nearly 42% of the time. All right, talking about it in terms of the main slate, do what you will with the DraftKings Turbo. Main slate wise, Kyle Bradish, Orioles bats, Keter Montero, Tigers bats. But it is a 4 corners game on that slate. Obviously, it's more important to your DraftKings Turbo needs. Phillies and the Marlins, Zach Wheeler, class of the board on the mound on any kind of site, any kind of slate. 10-7 on DraftKings on the Turbo, 11-1 on FanDuel, one of the top projected options. 100 innings on the nose across 16 starts, 30.8% strikeout, 5.8% walk, a 13.5% swinging strike rate, 2.16 ERA, 2.76 xFIP, matching across the board numbers underlying. 25% strikeout minus walk is pretty good. Excellent at inducing weak and medium contact with that 33.9% hard hit, the 86.3 miles an hour of exit velo. By every measure, Zach Wheeler is pitching at his peak still and is just one of the best pitchers in baseball over the last, decade now? He's tremendous. He's also 36 now. We're coming up toward the end with Wheeler, so get him while you can. Get him while he's still hot. The Marlins, again, have also just been scuffling lately. Some of their overperformance for the full season has been exposed in this tailspin that they've been in. That's not a reason to completely rule them out. I mean, they're deadly when they're going right. It's just they haven't collectively been going right for a minute now. But at least some interesting bats if you're choosing to attack Zach Wheeler for probably misguided contrarian reasons. You're going around the key bats, the guys who have looked good all year, like Otto Lopez, Kyle Stowers with all his power from the left side for only 4,000 on DK, 3,000 on FanDuel. These guys will be more important to the DK Turbo, of course. Heriberto Hernandez is interesting at just 35 on that DraftKings slate with all his power upside. But again, Wheeler is very, very difficult to homer against. Xavier Edwards, maybe we're just talking about the guys hitting for average, putting balls in play and succeeding, in which case you could get Otto, you could get Xavier Edwards, you could get Liam Hicks. Griff Conine, more of a power focused bat, 7 home runs and only 119 plate appearances, 16.2% barrel over that stretch, but also striking out 30% of the time. That speaks to me as more of a Zach Wheeler strikeout victim than his odds for hitting a long ball against Zach. Javier Sanoa, Jacob Marcy, just mix and match pieces at the bottom of the lineup. Marcy's been pretty messy, 195, 315, 288 season, but has stolen 19 bases. It's just unlikely to actually get to first base against Wheeler. And then Joe Mack is an interesting catcher at the bottom. We're not targeting Zach Wheeler even with good lefty bats, even with cheap catcher, good lefty bats, and so on in any realistic kind of a way. But if you do go to the Marlins for that reason, and it's on that DraftKings Turbo, probably I would consider taking Joe Mack at 29. He's at 10 home runs and 198 plate appearances, 10.5% barrel rate. Striking out too much against the low walk rate, not hitting for average, not getting on base consistently, but you're just looking for the crazy low probability blow up spot from Zach Wheeler. And through that, if that's what happens, Joe Mack is one of the more likely Marlins to be a part of it. Make sense? Phillies bats are more interesting. Going up against Tyler Phillips, 79 and a third, 10 starts, 17% strikeouts, walking 10.5%. This alone plays up the Phillies offense in a big way, considering the prime candidates for walks that their 2 power hitters are. And then some of the lower strikeout, just interesting balls in play type options that they have through this lineup, like Alec Bohm, Brandon Marsh, Bryson Stott, and so on. Just don't like how this aligns for Tyler Phillips. He has found an 11.2% swinging strike rate that maybe supports future upside for some Ks. He's pitched to a 3.52 ERA, but has a 4.69, 4.84 xFIP in Sierra under the surface. Has only allowed a 2.63% home run rate, but you'll see both the two usual suspects well above the magic number for home run quality. Everybody else kind of in their average spot. Because under the covers here, Phillips on a 10.3 degree average launch has allowed 90 miles an hour of exit velo, which is where we start focusing in on some problems, 42.7% hard hits. So there's premium contact available here, and these guys more than know how to find the correct trajectory on the ball. So not loving the upside for Tyler Phillips on the mound in any way, and I think the Phils at that 4.30 implied total, as I talked about before, maybe sneak through, especially on the main slate, a little bit lower owned. DraftKings Turbo, I think they're going to be as popular as they ought to be. Trey Turner, 14 home runs, 17 steals. Nice surge over the last 3-4 weeks. 244, 295, 391. Still has a ways to go. Still concerning through the weighted on base numbers, the WRC plus, but at least the counting stats are there in a big, big way. He's gotten on base a lot more consistently lately, paying off some opportunities for Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper to drive him in. He scored 72 times on the season. Both these guys are on base so much that they score a ton of runs as well. They also drive in a ton with their power upside. 33 homers for Schwarbs, 21 for Bryce Harper. And then you are more limited for power through the rest of this Phillies lineup. Adolis Garcia went out for the season and wasn't hitting. I think they were expecting him to come through with a resurgence for power this year that never really materialized. But you're getting tons of quality out of Brandon Marsh. 287, 328, 469, 16 home runs. Excellent season underway, 114 WRC plus. Tons of success on his batted ball events in terms of BABIP. Doesn't draw a ton of walks this year. He used to be better for walks. A couple double-digit walk rate years. 8.9% last year. But he's found all kinds of success for just where he's locating the ball, how he's hitting the ball nice and hard. Both the hard hit rate, the barrel rate is up. The hard hit rate actually slightly down over the last couple seasons, but negligible amount. Just him in his best form, 3,900, 3,000, incredibly usable. You're paying no tax whatsoever for a nearly 400 plate appearances of quality. Alec Bohm at 32-29, up to 13 home runs. We were looking for the uptick in power, but not at the expense of on base and average, something that he used to be very, very good at. So I want my previous version of Alec Bohm back. But 3,200, 2,900 has found a ton of success at driving runs in because, again, these guys are on base so much that if Brandon Marsh doesn't succeed or when Alec Bohm's hitting cleanup, he gets so many opportunities just by virtue of who hits in front of him that he doesn't even need to be good. If he was having a better year with the bat, he would have probably 12, 15 more ribbies. Doesn't strike out, doesn't draw walks. A lot of well-struck balls in play out of Alec Bohm, if nothing else, and he's nice and cheap at third base. Bryson Stott, mix and match kind of a guy, 252, 307, 405, 8 homers. Interesting for some stolen base and some correlated scoring, but one of the more forgettable pieces in this Phillies lineup. JT Realmuto, just a mix and match quality catcher these days, 40.2% hard hit rate, 7 home runs, 3 stolen bases, a lot of up and down performances. Even the xWOBA, only 317, is at least a little better than the actual, but it's still below average. Justin Crawford not having the year they were hoping for out of him, 255, 304, 340. Every now and again, you get a serviceable performance, but lacking power, lacking true reliability for any kind of steals, no premium contact, low strikeout, balls in play, but they don't really go anywhere. I think the more interesting guy down there is probably, if you're going Phillies, Gabriel Rincones Jr. 2 home runs in 84 plate appearances, a 9.3% barrel rate, has some realistic upside for power, has yet to find his footing in basically anything else at the major league level. Might never actually happen. He's not a high-end prospect. He's just a kid with some power. 31% strikeout against the 2.4% walk rate, obviously unsustainable. 177, 214, 304, a 37 WRC plus. Overperforming at 227 weighted on base against a 213 xWOBA, to illustrate the point. Not a reliable kid, but if we're just hunting for one good batted ball event, I'd say out of these guys from after Alec Bohm, he's the most interesting one. Zach Wheeler with a bullet. Phillies bats. Tyler Phillips, but no. And then Marlins bats, just in the most misguided contrarian kind of approach that probably isn't going to work. I don't think, speaking through that, when we talk about the making the decision for contrarian reasons, targeting what will absolutely guaranteed be top 2 most highly owned pitcher on any given slate today. You want to do it with a quality lineup, and there are visible pieces of quality for the Marlins, but you also want to do it in one of the at least slightly more likely to succeed spots. Yes, Wheeler can melt down from every now and again. But if I'm choosing to do that, I want to take a shot at a guy with at least one visible crack. And Zach Wheeler has really never had a visible crack. He's excellent for strikeouts. He doesn't walk anybody. He keeps runs off the board. He keeps power off the board. He induces ground balls. He induces weak and medium contact. There's not a lot there. So I think you come up shorter, even through I'm playing this for contrarian reasons in a full portfolio, knowing what I'm doing. I think the nature of this spot is such that it's not going to succeed at a high enough rate to really, truly pay off that type of an opportunity, that type of a play. So just a really low end looking spot. Again, much more crucial, and really nothing I just said applies to the turbo slate. That's an entirely different animal, which is 4 games in play. Merrill Kelly against Mitch Keller. Starting our little run of MK guys. 67 for Kelly, 7,000 for Keller on DraftKings Turbo, 85 and 8,000. 5.12 ERA against a 4.90 ERA, a 5.07 xFIP against a 4.58 xFIP, a 14.4% strikeout rate against a 17.9% strikeout rate. Both teams pulling upper fours implied totals. I think we're just looking at this one for bats. If you're desperate on that DraftKings slate where you're just mixing and matching your way through low-end SP2 options across the 4-gamer, either one of these guys, equally bad, equally unlikely to succeed, and equally throwable for the value. I would say probably do lean, and I think this is what I said earlier, probably do lean toward Mitch Keller against the Diamondbacks if I had to, gun to my head. That's the lower end of the two offenses. It's the shorter of the two lineups, and Keller has a little bit more going for him, limiting home runs a little bit this year, missing barrels a little bit this year, the guy with the slightly higher strikeout rate. If you look back to last year, Merrill Kelly was actually the better of the two by a pretty wide margin. Last season had a good year, 22.3% strikeout, 6.4% walk, had a good 10.6% swinging strike rate, 3.52 ERA against a 3.81 xFIP. It was pretty real. Did allow a fair amount of premium contact and did not get burnt by it. That's where you could easily have seen him. All right, this year Merrill Kelly's probably going to be more a 4.25 ERA type guy. If he walks more, that could be, again, problematic, but he didn't walk all that many the year before, so there's really no reason to expect it. This year, the strikeouts went away. The walks skyrocketed. The ERA went way up because the premium contact got paid off much, much more. The launch angle was about the same, but he's missing his spots. He's given up the barrels this year to an extreme degree, 4.88% home runs. So he is just not the same guy he was last year. I'm looking to attack that with Pirates bats at that 4.90 total, and that gives me a little bit more faith, again, man against man, in Mitch Keller. But I in no way want to actually endorse Mitch Keller here. 17% strikeout, again, the 4.90 ERA, has limited home runs, but mostly through happenstance. 42% hard hits, 89.4 miles an hour of exit velo, 14-degree average launch angle, so the trajectory is there. Also just well below average stuff, well below average pitching. He's just kind of a locator these days. Once upon a time, we had expectations of more from Mitch Keller, but he's just given us season after season of this. Lower fours, mid fours ERA, low 20s strikeout rate. Same thing here. Same thing back in this season. Was a little better for K's. 4.21 ERA, though. Had a 3.70 xFIP. This was, if not his best year, one of his best years. But even that was, at best, I would say you could describe that as usable. Diamondbacks bats against, very interesting, Corbin Carroll. 15 homers, 13 steals, 344 on base, tremendous run creator with a 124 WRC plus. Overperforming slightly at a 356 weighted on base against the 345 XWOL, but even in this somewhat diminished season, when we talk about the average, it's not that diminished actually. 259 last year. I thought he hit for a little bit more average last year. The power has dipped a little bit. He hit 31 homers last year. We're not getting back to 30 unless he goes on a big tear in these final 8 weeks of season that we've got in front of us. He has seen a little bit of diminishment around the premium contact. Still very good numbers overall, but we talked about this way back at the end of spring training when he had the hamate bone injury. That does tend to sap power. So it is a little ongoing here, but he more than makes up for it with triples and doubles and everything that he does so well. Put it in Discord over the weekend. He is now tied for triples with this ridiculous list of luminaries. The two names that really stand out, I did it in reverse order at the end of my list, were Mike Trout and Jackie Robinson. Pretty good, 55 triples. Obviously a much shorter career so far for Corbin Carroll. Geraldo Perdomo, excellent at 42, 3,000. They do Ketel Marte sliding down to the cleanup spot at 5,000, 3,200, 19 home runs. I almost told you guys something that was true in my MLB The Show season, not in real life. Ketel Marte was on the IL. That is not true in real life. Kevin Moreno at 45-31, one of the more underrated catchers on any given slate. 315, 396, 458, 7 home runs on the board, 4 stolen bases. Better for driving in runs, scoring runs, but he's on base all the time. Plenty of upside, low strikeout, high walk rate. Really, really interesting catcher, hitting third in the lineup amidst all their stars. He is part of that top end of this Diamondbacks mix. Max Kepler is really interesting. Tyler Locklear is interesting enough. Kepler, very, very real power upside from the left side. He's been crazy inconsistent over just 70 plate appearances so far. 2 home runs, 206, 257, 365, 66 WRC plus. But this is a guy with multiple seasons of premium home run quality. He's very cheap from the left side against a super gettable righty. Locklear at just 26, 27. A lot of success on his way up. Aging out the back end of the prospect process, really needs to catch on at the major league level going forward. 316, 417, 526, a home run, a stolen base in 24 plate appearances so far. Very cheap at first base. Found the barrel a few times. Kid's got realistic power upside. Could potentially be very interesting in a Diamondback stack and will not be all that popular. Adrian Del Castillo, if you need a cheaper catcher option, every now and again puts a quality plate appearance together for a batted ball event. 5 home runs and 180 plate appearances. I don't want to oversell it, though. You also get a lot of strikeout against not much walk, not much opportunity via on-base skills. So just a mixer for a cheaper price at catcher. Ildemaro Vargas and Ryan Waldschmidt just looking like mixers at the bottom. Vargas, after that hot start, pretty much cratered. 272, 318, 407, and continuing to fall down the hole to infinity. Remember The Simpsons when Ozzie Smith took the picture? He fell into the vortex. Mr. Burns and his 8 of 9 players having misfortunes that night. Darryl Strawberry came through it okay. Waldschmidt, highly touted kid, 268, 313, 384. Between him and Vargas, if somebody's making you play one of those two guys, take the cheaper Ryan Waldschmidt on DraftKings. Take Ryan Waldschmidt and just plunk him in the outfield for 100 more. I would greatly prefer having him. Much more realistic upside for true contact, but also still a lot of holes, a growing young player. The Pirates are the more interesting of the two teams, especially with that little power core through the middle with Brandon Lau, Brian Reynolds, and Esmeralda Valdez to throw at Merrill Kelly here. Tons of upside for home run. Valdez pulling a 9.47, Brandon Lau at 10.87. You could potentially nudge them upward a little bit around those two. Reynolds is having a good bounce back here. 269, 383, 453 on base all the time, creating runs at a 131 WRC plus, with the exception of Valdez's ridiculous surge over 143 chances. Reynolds leads the team currently in weighted runs created. So really interesting bounce back here, making great contact, 11.5% barrels, 46.8% hard hits, 3,500, 5,100. This team gets even more interesting in another week or two. I think the 8th is when O'Neal Cruz is first eligible to come back from IL. Hasn't started rehabs yet, but this team's going to go upward once he gets back, hopefully. And really interesting bats throughout. You've had a lot of success around Jake Mangum this season. 303, 351, 371, continuing to hold down the leadoff spot. Doesn't do a lot on his own, but has admittedly been pretty decent for correlated scoring with a few upside bonuses for stolen bases. I will continue to point out, though, the speed is what gets him where he needs to be. 282 weighted on base underneath a pretty pedestrian 321 actual weighted on base, 100 WRC plus. He is a league average quad A player who's into his 30s already, not a burgeoning star, but very playable, and the price has not budged at 38.28. Ryan O'Hearn at 47.32. Nice piece of value in the middle of the lineup, 17 home runs and 375, hits the ball squarely from the left side. Not a bad way to fill first base. Also, among this stretch of bats, I would say I'd rather have Lau, Reynolds, and Valdez and leave O'Hearn if I had to make that decision. Fortunately, you can take all 4 of them on both sides. Nick Gonzalez has found a bunch of success on BABIP this season. 313, 369, 411. So far, it's been very, very sustainable. Also does have a little bit of sneaky pop in the bat, the ability to drive the ball. It's not totally visible through his batted ball events, but he can turn on one from time to time when he's looking for power, has the opportunity. 6 home runs, 4 stolen bases, just a lot of quality through Nick Gonzalez. Have kind of come around on that bat. Does have a revealing 322 ex-WOBA under the 346 actual, though, something to keep an eye on. But a guy who's so good with the hit tool that he is directing his success at the plate on those batted balls. Also just very low strikeout, a lot of opportunity on balls in play. Jacob Gonzalez at 3,000, 2,700 is an interesting mix and match piece. Tyler Callahan, Henry Davis, a little bit less so down toward the bottom of the lineup. Any one of those guys could put one in the seats against a lousy Merrill Kelly, though. If you're stacking this team up, those are value considerations to build in. Pirates bats, Diamondbacks bats, Keller over Kelly. Neither guy all that important to me tonight on the main slate. More important to your turbo. One of the big spots of the day, these Washington Nationals against Max Scherzer. Max in his 22 innings, his 6 lonely starts in the show this year, has pitched to a 10.23 ERA. This is just something at the end of the career that's going to skew his numbers slightly. Not all that impactfully across all the starts that he made for the career. Like Mickey Mantle slipped below a 300 average for his career. I think he finished 298 for the career, and it reportedly always haunted him. Hopefully Max doesn't slip below some key number in his head for his fantastic career with all this ugliness. I don't see a lot of reason to go to Max here against one of the highest totals on the board, one of the better run creation teams, and with all this power showing against him. He did have an interesting start against AAA hitters the other day. Where is it? 5 innings, faced 15 kids who were probably born like midway through his career. 5 innings, shut them out, no hits, struck out 7. Sure. Start before that, prior to the All-Star break, faced the Yankees AAA affiliate. Same situation as far as the age of those kids, the development level of those kids. 4 innings, gave up 4 earned runs, 5 runs total, 6 hits, struck out 5. Walked nobody in either of those 2 starts. I have zero faith in this version of Max Scherzer. You can see all the power looking here. If you're going to him on the mound, I cannot endorse it. 6,500, even on the turbo, I really, really don't see it. Andrew Alvarez is going to be following an opener. Eddie Yeen, I don't really see any kind of upside in playing Alvarez at 6,200 with less opportunity to win this ball game, even though his team is going to go off. It just really makes it shaky. So pretty thin on the mound in this one. I think we're just talking about bats. Blue Jays pulling a 4.86 implied total against Alvarez makes them at least somewhat interesting. They've been disappointing through the year. We do know that, but particularly on the FanDuel board, the full slate, they're 5th by points, and they're our top-ranked value team on that full FanDuel slate with 11 games. So they're at least poking their heads up for that. Vladdy at 3,000, George Springer at 31. The most expensive guy on the team is Kaz Akamoto at 3,300, and then you've got a lot of $2,000 guys to work in. So plenty of value showing, if nothing else, and we're just looking for cheap balls in play out of this squad, and they can do that. They haven't done a lot else. They've been good for run creation. This is a team with a 9-man average WRC plus of 95 across this starting lineup. But they're usable. They've got sneaky, interesting options like Luis Urias, with a little bit of potential to put a good piece of contact together against a bad lefty. Alvarez on the season, allowing plenty of hard hits and exit velocity, doesn't come on an extreme trajectory. That saved his life in terms of the home run rate. That's suppressing somewhat the power upside that's visible for the Blue Jays, in addition to them just suppressing themselves. But this is a very gettable starter. He also puts too many guys on base via the walk, something that this team is good enough to exploit. So between their low strikeout nature, the ability to draw the walk, and just putting quality balls in play, even if they're low trajectory, I'm fine with going to Blue Jays for value, if nothing else. Probably the value is there, but the DraftKings Turbo probably a little bit less impactful with all those quality options to go to. Ernie Clement at the top of the Blue Jays, 43.27, all-star Ernie. Multiple positions on the full FanDuel slate, probably more interesting for 27 over there than 43 on the short DK slate. 8 homers, 4 steals, just a 322 on base. We need to see a little improvement there. 325 weighted on base and a 275 xwOBA. Ernie, another hit tool focused player, extreme low strikeout, 9.6, 3.4% walk. So just tons of balls in play, tons of opportunity to beat the ball to first base. Nathan Luke's a guy who does get on base at a good clip, 336 on base, hitting for average. Another guy, light contact, just focused on low strikeout, balls in play, beat the ball to first base and create an opportunity for guys that follow. Vladdy's not hitting the ball like he used to. 6 home runs on the season, is getting on at a 345 clip. There are good on base and hit tool guys here. It's just nobody's really driving them in. Your team leader for RBIs is at 65, and then nobody else. The next man up is Vladdy with 44. This team just lacks the ability to drive runners in. 23 home runs on the board for Okamoto. Springer, the only other guy in this starting lineup in the double digits for home run power. 11 in a pretty otherwise lackluster season, and that's not a good total for him across 331 plate appearances when he's doing nothing else. But he's also low strikeout, high walk. So are these guys. Correct collection of hitters to throw at Alvarez here and the opener if you're looking to go to the Blue Jays. I doubt they're going to be as popular as they ought to be for all the value that they show on FanDuel as well. So just as a second stack, as a mixer, maybe 2-3 of these guys, reasonable play through that. Alejandro Kirk is cheap where you need catchers on the short slate. 2,600 makes him playable on FanDuel. I don't love the idea of double dipping the first base util out of this team, though, on the FanDuel board. If I'm going to this team for value, it's most likely so that I can pay a big price at first base or a util spot from some other team. Those are going to be key positions. Okamoto is crucial for the power upside. He's the only guy hitting for a reasonable barrel or hard hit rate. Only guy not even reasonable, only guy who's at all interesting for barrels or hard hits from this team on the season. Varsho, mix and match quality outfielder from the left side. Miles Straw is just a slap hitter with a little bit of speed. And Urias against the lefty is a little piece of value at 25-24 across sides. The more interesting Nats, 30 home runs on the board for James Wood, closing in on 100 runs scored already. Just ridiculous quality, 156 WRC+. He's on base all the time. He's got a ludicrous 403 weighted on base average and an even better 425 xwOBA. So good as he's been, he's technically underperforming. That's insane. 22.2% barrel rate, more than doubling up all of his teammates. Luis Garcia Jr. has hit 21 home runs and been very interesting across 348 plate appearances. Low strikeout, low walk, tons of very, very well struck balls in play this season. Jose Tena from the left side is a piece of value at second base for 33 for 24. 5 home runs in 200 plate appearances, 3 stolen bases, mix and match quality through the slash line, but maybe more interesting for contact, 8.1% barrel and 51.2% hard hits across those 200 plate appearances. That's an interesting hitter. A lot of strikeout in his game, but going up against this version of Max Scherzer, that's somebody people will probably sleep on from this Nationals team when they're trying to get to C.J. Abrams, Luis Garcia, James Wood, and Dalen Lyle probably gets more highly owned among the lesser lefties in this lineup. So a cheap Jose Tena at second base could be very interesting from this team. CJ for 6 for 41, 27 homers, 17 stolen bases from the shortstop. What's not to like? He is one of the guys that I'm talking about when I say we're saving money for high-quality shortstops. Dylan Cruz at 4,000 has found a lot of premium contact, 9.8% barrel, 43.8% hard hits. It's turned into 8 home runs, 6 stolen bases, a pretty low-end slash line. Does have a nice 328 xwOBA lurking under the 308 actual. This is a little bit above average compared to below average. There's a more interesting bat there than he's been. Strikeouts are down. Walks are about the same. He needs to either lower that walk rate and make even more high-end contact or push that walk rate up and get on base more to really find his quality. But that's a nice piece to attack, a dead version of Max Scherzer for value. Lyle from the left side gives you a little quality, 11 homers, 10 steals, but it's 436 plate appearances deep now. There's no consistency in his game. And again, probably a guy that people think of first when they're going to this team for start mining the value guys out of this team to put in stacks with these 3. Jordi Vivas, Nasim Nunez down the bottom of the lineup. Nunez has been hitting a lot more lately, getting on base at a 331 clip, 37 stolen bases. His quality is entirely based on beating the ball to first base with his speed. If he can do that, he can manufacture a run and give you an interesting piece for correlated scoring. Not completely terrible as a wraparound, but I have my questions about how real any of the uptick in quality at the plate has been lately. In a big way, it's Nationals bats, then Blue Jays bats, and really would not use any of the pitching on even the DraftKings Turbo. I just don't think they're there. Now we connect with the DraftKings for the full slate. Clintwood knew the Simpsons reference. I don't know what you think. I don't know what you think sideburns are, Mr. Burns. He's just got this shaved all the way up the line. And then he's walking away and he just muttered, I still like him better than Steinbrenner. I'm doing what smart managers call playing the percentages. He pinch hits homer for Darryl Strawberry. Darryl goes up. Really? But I've got 9 home runs today. Yes, take a seat, Darryl. Going to a right-handed hitter. And he was right. Homer took one off the dome and won the game. Anyway, big spot here as long as this game plays. Love the Reds. Bats 4.75 implied total. Also really like the look of their pitcher on the mound, though. Chase Burns, 28.6% strikeout. Comes with a 9% walk rate. When you get a little bit of downside, it's because he's put a few too many guys on base and then did something silly like cough up a long ball. It's not a problem for him with home runs, but every now and then you could get the home run to fly ball rear its ugly head a little bit, particularly in his home park. A little bit of a bandbox situation here. 19.7 degree average launch. But he's very good at using his stuff to kind of saw guys off. 36.3% hard hits, 88.9 miles an hour of exit velo, only a 2.77% home run rate. So again, not problematic, but that's the day that could be at the extreme high prices, the difference maker, right? 2 guys get walked or base hit and walk, 2 guys on base, whatever it is. That one fly ball on the wrong day in this ballpark where conditions favor hitting carries into the seats. You can see where a couple few runs come from. 3-4 runs, especially on FanDuel, 4 runs at 10-7. It's going to bend your day pretty badly. Chase Burns, by the way, I'm going to take Wheeler. Taking Wheeler, I forgot to announce it before. This game too likely to get rained out. So Chase Burns is available for the pitching picks contest. He's also the one of the 2 highest strikeout potential pitchers on the board. If you weren't here before the pitching picks contest after the show, come on back, leave your comment. First to 5 wins. It's just starting up today, so fresh contest. Win a free month at rotoscouts. You got to pick a pitcher who is going to put up both a quality start and strike out 8 or more. Quality start being 6 innings of 3 runs or fewer allowed, 3 earned runs or fewer allowed. So tight contest. Should be an interesting one. You can't use Zach Wheeler today. That is the pitcher every day. I'm going to take a guy off the board. Today it's Zach Wheeler. Everybody else on the slate, fair game for you guys to use, including Chase Burns. Probably would be my pick if I was just picking safe. Guards entirely vulnerable, sub 4 implied total for them. Don't love the look of their bats. The ballpark does play to their favor. If we're just hunting again, like we talked about with the Marlins against Wheeler, for quality of opportunity, quality of lineup against the very good pitchers. And if we're saying, all right, through that, I want to attack a guy who maybe has at least one visible crack that could get exposed between Zach Wheeler and Chase Burns at the top of the board. Ballpark favors targeting Burns. Cracks favor targeting Burns. The walk rate, the fly balls. Both of those things are things that Zach Wheeler simply does not do that could lead to the downside day. More likely, even if that happens, it's a 3-4 run day for the Guardians, and it doesn't matter as much in real life. It doesn't push them up the board for quality. It just bends Chase Burns' day. But every now and again, you'll sneak the Guardians through, I think, more frequently against Chase Burns in this ballpark than you will the Marlins against Zach Wheeler in their park. So between Guardians and Marlins against the 2 best pitchers of the day, who would I prefer to take? It is the low end, less interesting across the full year Guardians rather than the more interesting, friskier Marlins for the year. Hopefully that makes sense. If you're going to that angle, and again, this is not saying that you should be by any means. It's a bad spot. But if you're going that direction, Stephen Kwan back in the leadoff role, we're looking for him to hit for a little bit of average, get to first base any way he can. 351 on base for the season. He's drawn a 13% walk rate, strikeouts at just 9.7. He's going to live and die ultimately by the hit tool, but it's nice to see the walks up a little bit to get him on base more frequently. Historically, he's been a high single digits walk rate guy, so he's pushing that a little bit to get himself to first base because he was lacking that earlier in the season, still carrying just a 94 WRC plus on the year. Jose Ramirez back in the lineup, superstar. You go to him anytime you go to this team, and particularly if you're going to them in a bad situation, that's your highest quality player. 54-37, price is down slightly across sites. 10 homers, 24 steals, missed a little time, but also slightly off the mark across the board this season. Chase DeLauder, a high-quality bat, 3,800, 3,000, 11 home runs, tons of on-base skills, a 352 on base. Another player, low strikeout, reasonably high walk rate. And again, that is something you can maybe throw at Chase Burns. You get three guys in double digits and a 9.9 out of the top 4 hitters in this lineup in terms of the walk rate. Travis Bazzana, rookie, having a okay up and down kind of a season. 9 home runs, 15 stolen bases, and just 325 plate appearances. Quite good. Some good counting stats to go with it. A very good 335 on base. Just a 325 weighted on base and a 299 xWOB under the surface. Just hitting 239 on the season. Has lacked a little bit for premium contact that I was kind of more expecting from him. 4.2% barrel, 34.7% hard hit. He's good enough with the hit tool to get away with it. Maybe it was more hoping than expecting, but I was thinking there was maybe a little bit more high impact quality there. But any way you slice it, I think that's a very interesting player at price at second base if you're going to this team. But again, I'm stopping well short of endorsing this team. Brian Rocchio, mix and match piece, mostly here for defense, was mostly an illusion earlier in the year, but has put up a good amount of counting stats across the board, all 4 major categories this year. Just doesn't particularly hit the ball hard. Not a really interesting piece, and not a great way to fill shortstop, a key position with a lot of high upside guys. Kyle Manzardo is interesting if you're going to this team. Gabriel Arias is kind of interesting at third base, 11.7% barrels, 48.3% hard hits, 5 homers, 4 steals, and 117 chances. Hasn't really resulted in a lot, and consistency has never been his game. But if I'm just taking a wild flailing desperation shot at a low-owned team, that'll be a low-owned guy on a low-owned team, and one of the few potentially impactful bats if he happens to make a good piece of contact. Not a high walk rate guy, incredibly high strikeout rate guy, more likely to be struck out twice by Chase Burns and 2 more times by the bullpen than anything else. Patty Bailey feeds the strikeout upside for Burns. So does Petey Halpin at the bottom of the lineup. Mix and match pieces at best for those 2 guys. On to the Reds, the more appealing of these 2 teams. You can see 3 guys in the lineup above the magic number for home run quality. They're going up against Slade Ciccone, who hasn't exactly had a home run problem, but there's plenty of opportunity from this ballpark. There's just plenty of downside, and he's at best an average pitcher when it comes to the long ball. And these are good home run bats. So I love the upside for the Reds. They were number 1 on the home run model board. Home run pick of the day comes from this team. We just need this game to play. TJ Friedl bringing up the bottom of the Reds lineup, 2,900, 2,400. Pretty bad 229 plate appearances, not really giving us the quality that we need from him as a wraparound potential type guy. In years past, he's gotten on base more consistently, has been interesting if you want to just remember who he's been a little bit here and there. 29, 24 is an okay price to pay for that. But I'm maybe more interested in the skill set that Edwin Arroyo brings to bear at 2,300, 2,400. Shortstop lacking a little bit of quality there. 134 pretty weak plate appearances, particularly when it comes to DFS quality for us so far. But the minor league plate appearances earlier in the season and a little bit last year were very, very interesting, particularly around speed, little hit tool, but he was flashing power earlier in the season. Has yet to find it at all in the show, but at second base on DK on the full slate at 2,300, he's going to be one of the lower owned players on this team. So that's at least still somewhat appealing through that lens, and going up against a bad pitcher, it can't all be about the power bats. And he also helps offset cost a little bit around the bats we truly want to get to. Dane Myers, another blazingly fast guy. Oh, no, wait. That's the other guy, right? Is it Dane Myers? I always mix these 2 up. Bear with me. Make sure I'm talking about the right guy. No, it's not Dan Myers. I forget who the hell is the guy I'm thinking of. Doesn't matter. We won't spend time trying to figure out who I'm thinking of, who's not in the lineup. Dan Myers is in the lineup. Just a mix and match type piece in the outfield, 2,600, 2,400, 3 homers, 6 steals. A 356 on base is probably the most interesting part of him. If we're just making wishes, maybe having Dane Myers in the 9 spot would have been more interesting. He's kind of just lost in this 7 spot where you're looking for him to kind of cash in on these guys being on base more than anything else, because you're not looking for him to get on base, set the table for these two all that much, and you're certainly not taking more than one of those 3 guys in any given Reds lineup. The quality is through all those guys in the top 6. That's a really interesting group of hitters. Tyler Stevenson, we talk about a lot on this show. Always way too cheap, particularly where you need catchers. 27 on DK. He's 27 on FanDuel, and I'm happy to pretend at the same price that he's the first baseman instead of Nathaniel Lowe as I'm going back and forth across Reds builds. I want to get to Nathaniel Lowe today, no doubt about it as well, but I'm maybe even more interested in Tyler Stevenson, given more people will go to Nathaniel Lowe between the two on FanDuel. They probably come up about even on DK. Stevenson maybe even surpasses Lowe in terms of ownership because of the catcher thing. But that's a super important catcher bat. Plenty of home run potential, 8 in 281 chances amidst all this premium contact that he has always made. We've been illustrating for a long, long time. I don't get why he's always so cheap. Lowe at 3,200 has made a bunch of premium contact this year. Talked about him putting together a nice stretch of quality, 12 home runs, getting on base at a good clip, 333 on base, a 116 WRC plus. He's been integral to this team and any kind of success they've had, and he's still very cheap. You're not paying any kind of tax for those 249 plate appearances. Eugenio Suarez at 13.03 in the home run model, which has a very long memory for power. 14 on the season, otherwise completely forgotten year for our guy Gino here. 300 pretty bad plate appearances, 207, 280, 402. Needs to find the quality these last 2 months. I am supremely confident that he'll give us, as long as he's healthy, a quality final 2 months, at least normalize that home run total. I bet you Gino gets to 25. He's at 14 right now. He's got a ways to go. I bet you he gets 25. JJ Bleday, 3,933. Still a little bit expensive on FanDuel. The DraftKings price has cooled with the performance a little bit. 17 home runs in that outrageous tear that he went on. Up to 322 plate appearances now, 234, 343, 469. Still a lot of quality through that slash line. Still a guy who can get on base, if nothing else. He has always been good at getting on base. Noteworthy double-digit walk rates each of the last few years. This year, he's lowered strikeout rate while still drawing those walks and finding just way more success for power and quality at the plate. So even with a diminishment in maybe consistency and certainly in batting average, the power is real and the on-base is extremely real. So at worst, he's a good piece for correlated scoring and a little bit more than just another outfielder. Also pulling a 9.68 in the home run model that could easily have been over 10 today. 2 over 10 guys at the top of the lineup. Sal Stewart first, 4,900, 3,500, 21 homers, 11 steals across 450 opportunities. Kid's been crushing it all year. 217 ISO, a 342 weighted on base, 349 xWOBA, saying that it's all incredibly real. If I could ask anything from Sal Stewart, it would be for a little slight uptick in consistency of well-struck balls. 13.7% barrel is fantastic. 39.7% hard hit rate leaves something to be desired. And then the multi-category man at the top of the lineup, Mr. Eli De La Cruz. Come on down, 6,000, 3,700. You are the home run pick of the day. 11.94 in the home run model. 18 long balls on the season. Next to 18 stolen bases, a 354 on base, a 130 WRC plus. Yes, I went chalky with the home run pick of the day. I wanted to get one on the board to begin the week. I love Eli's opportunity against Slate Ciccone here. Even if he doesn't hit the home run today, it's just one of those spots that just sings for quality in a big game any way he can get there. So love that spot. Absolutely crucial to any build that you do with the Reds. Chase Burns, Reds bats right there. Top priority options on both the mound and at the plate and any given slate. Guardians bats trail way behind that, but I'd probably rather have them than Slate Ciccone. Blake Dunn, Reg Kell nailed it. Thank you. I knew somebody would have it. Yeah, Blake Dunn has one of the better sprint speed ratings in baseball. 96th percentile, 29.6, however that's measured. Don't actually know. Is that like a 40? No, it's 29.6. It's not a 40 time. 29.6 is obviously their grade somehow. I'm just not sure how that's tested or how that scale works. Let's hit the lineups button. When I do this, you guys hit the like button if you haven't already. as that's populating, hopefully the Mets lineup here, there's your pitching picks contest details. Win yourself a free month. You also have the stacks board here to examine while we're waiting on that and while you're listening to me chatter about this contest. You need a quality start plus 8 or more strikeouts to be successful. Multi-day contest, 1st to 5 correct picks wins. This is day 1 of the contest. You cannot pick Zach Wheeler today. Chase Burns is available. Everybody else on this ugly, ugly pitching slate is certainly available. I expect to see a lot of Chase Burns picks. Can't use my guy that I took off the board. 1 pick per person per day. Got to use the same YouTube handle every day for my sanity. A lot of weather concerns to be aware of. Called them out earlier in the show. Rewind if you need it. Just follow at Kevin Roth WX on Twitter. More importantly, still no Mets lineup. Fair enough. Zach Thornton overpriced at 85, more overpriced at 97. Coming in with a 19.5% strikeout rate, over 23 and a third in 4 starts. Last time out went 6. 3-hit shutout against the Brewers. Fantastic outing. Only struck out 2, walked 1. Had a 7-inning shutout, 2 hits against the Red Sox. That was on the 12th, before the break and after the break. 5 strikeout, 2 walk day. Very, very good. 1 earned run on 5 hits, over 6 against the Phillies. Those are 3 pretty good teams. 7 strikeout day, walk 1. That's where you get to the overpricing. Considering it comes any quality for that run limitation, seems more coincidental than anything else. Sub 20% strikeout rate, allowing a fair amount of premium contact, 12.5% barrel, 14.2 degree average launch, nearly 90 miles an hour of exit velo. So we're probably pretty lucky in this tiny sample to be there. Again, in the minors, he had a few stretches over the last few seasons as he was coming up where he was pretty successful limiting the home run ball. None of that work came at even AAA. His first appearance at the AAA level was this year. He's made 8 starts, 9 appearances at AAA, 37 and 2/3. He's pitched to a 4.30 ERA with a 4.93 xFIP down on the farm. This is in his age 24 season, so relatively age appropriate. And his home run per 9, which isn't my favorite way to measure, but it's what I have in front of me, spiked from low, 0.62 across his 2025 minor league work in high A and double A, 0.44 high A, 0.69 double A. It spiked all the way to 1.67. His walk rate also shot up, 11% walk rate after the promotion, 23.2% strikeout against 11% walk. So yeah, he's made 3 outstanding starts in the show this year. I don't know that I have faith in any of it being actually real, considering what he's been doing in the minors. I wouldn't want to throw that low faith option into the Braves. And he's coming in at these prices. If he were 75, 8,000, we'd maybe making the case for him a little bit more. I'd rather have Braves bats, and Vegas agrees, 4.5 implied total. So plenty upside there. The power's showing enough to get Ronnie Acuna back in the lineup finally. 55-37. He's showing an 11.25 in the home run model. 7 on the season, 15 stolen bases. When he's been available, he's been pretty good. 251, 373, 421. Maybe not peak form, but a 350 weighted on base with a 378 xWOBA under it. Plenty of premium contact. Drake Baldwin's phenomenal. 54, 4,000. 20 home runs, 277, 371, 484. I want to make that point again, though. Baldwin is outperforming Dingler when it comes to premium contact over here. Just because I pulled up Dalen Dingler's line and they're similarly priced. But I mean, look how close they are. Baldwin's getting on base more. Dingler's hit 2 more home runs, hitting the ball a little bit for a little bit more slug, finding the more success through ISO and for extra base hits overall. He's outperforming him. Baldwin is right there. Let's call this a tie. outperforming him by WRC plus 142 versus 135. There's an appreciable price difference on DraftKings between those two. 54 versus 48. And then once you start getting into, obviously the 4,200 there. Who was the other guy I said was a too cheap catcher just a minute ago? Whoever that was, even cheaper. There are a lot of interesting catcher opportunities. Ivan slipped a little bit in terms of the batting average. The power's a little bit lighter, but he's on base all the time. It's a good option. You can see the difference in weight of run creation. There is a little bit of a downtick there. But there's also, again, a very big price dip when you consider him against Dingler, let alone against Baldwin. Sometimes it pays to just put options side by side. But all that was to illustrate that Drake Baldwin, an incredible choice at catcher, and really on either site, even doubling up first base util out of this team at 4,000 for him, and then 38 for Matty Olson, who you definitely don't want to skip from this squad. That's a reasonable way to stack the Braves, and you can get to enough middle infield quality from other teams. 27 homers on the board from Matty O. Ozzie Albies at 47-32, fills second base admirably, 17 home runs on the year, continuing to defy his ex-Woba. I bet he continues to do it, but he is down to a 100 WRC plus on the season, something to keep an eye on as far as the actual run creation goes. But when we're just talking about quality for counting stats, dude's hit 17 homers, scored 67, driven in 57. That's a very high quality second baseman for DFS purposes. Michael Harris is only 4,900. He's continuing to hit the ball very hard. The hard hit rate has declined a little bit. This was in the 50s not too long ago. Prices come down somewhat, down under 5,000 on DK, 34 on FanDuel, 19 home runs. He slipped below a 300 average, but just an outstanding season and a key piece from the left side, even against a lefty here. I'm still interested in some Michael Harris. The hope would be that people overrating Zach Thornton and the lefty of it would take ownership away from Michael Harris there. Mauricio Dumont, mix and match piece across multiple positions on FanDuel. Just an outfielder on DraftKings takes a lot away from him. I would say he's just another outfielder where he's more interesting is, second base, third base, maybe 10 homers on the season, a decent enough slash line, just a 97 WRC plus though, reveals a little bit of the just another guy type nature of him. Austin Riley, we're pushing our way back up in terms of the premium contact numbers, still lacking compared to previous seasons. 12 home runs. We've talked all season long about the ongoing lack of quality there. Joey Bart, Jim Jarvis, you still play him though. 4,000, 2,900, at least it's priced in. Joey Bart, Jim Jarvis, mix and match guys down at the bottom of the lineup. My God, it's 525 already? I've just been babbling my way through this slate. On the Mets side, going up against Martin Perez at 6,900, 7,400, we do have to have a conversation about Perez here. I think he's going to come through, at least for value in some spots. I'm not completely sold that you should. I think it will come up. And it might be a spot where you consider pivoting away and get to a different value opportunity because they're all pretty similarly bad. And 4.55 implied total working against, enough quality through this Mets lineup, whatever shape it takes, even with no Soto. And Perez, 3.38 ERA, sure, but a 4.69 Sierra, an 8.31 strikeout minus walk rate, 18.6% strikeouts minus 10.3% walk. That isn't very good. He's been good at inducing ground balls. He's been good at inducing weak and medium contact, avoiding the home run ball. That's all reflected through here. And Vegas still gets the Mets up to a 4.5 total. So maybe it doesn't send us rushing off to roster Mets against him, but it doesn't really imbue a lot of faith in him as a value play. 6,900 is perfectly fine price-wise. 74, where you only need one starter and you need to book the quality start. He's throwing 85 and a third in his 15 starts. You're not getting much depth in the average start out of Perez. So he's even less relevant to that FanDuel board. Very shaky, questionable play here. Probably off the board, if we're being honest about things on FanDuel. But, again, I at one point built him into a placeholder just because I didn't have anywhere else to go. I couldn't get to the 200 for Imai. He was 74. You could go to Schultz against the Yanks, but that's likely to get washed out. Peterson against the Cards in the bad conditions is the other consideration there at 68. And I think I prefer that. I have more faith in Peterson. There's no real separation for projection there. And these are really bad really bad pitching conditions in the near 100-degree temps. So it's probably shaky enough for value that he is in play, but I'd really like to take him off my board. Mets bats against are playable, but again, I wouldn't go rushing to roster them. As bad as he is, it's a really ugly lineup, or it's a good lineup that's just filled with underperformance. AJ Ewing at 39, 3,000. Decent piece, 338 on base. Good fill for the leadoff role, but no Soto obviously dings his quality for correlated scoring. You still get Lindor, you still got Bo Bichette, you get the very hard-hitting Frankie Alvarez there. Alvarez arguably the most interesting piece with that 16% barrel rate, a dozen home runs and 255 chances, and only costs 3,300 on DraftKings where you need the catcher spot. If he's cleaning up today, that's a good upside piece. Lubob at 3,628. Terrible 116 plate appearances and tons of missed time this year. Just another lost season in his career that's probably never going to amount to what his talent once looked like it was. But any given slate upside for sure against a pitcher like this from the right side with loads and loads of power. Lindor would be a super high priority if I'm going to this team. Making reasonable amounts of premium contact, low strikeout, high walk rate keeps him involved and interesting. 223, 308, 378 is ugly. 94 WRC plus, 6 homers, 2 steals, a lot of missed time for him as well. But a 339 xWOBA supports the underlying upside based on mostly his premium contact and his ability to just put the ball in play or get on base. So there's still a lurking superstar there, and he is not priced like it. Bo at 42-28, kind of doing his thing at this point. 10 home runs, 257, 305, 370. Not finding the consistency as much. Lacking a little bit for hard hit rate still on the season. 89 WRC plus, but a 323 xWOBA lurking under the surface. He's been back to more normalized levels, low strikeout, medium walk rate over the last month plus. Bottom of this version of the lineup does get a little bit more shaky. Marcus Semien, a pretty ugly season, 11 home runs, a 69 WRC plus, 304 xWOBA. Wagaman just mix and matchy. Tyrone Taylor, Luis Torrens, kind of the same thing. So it is a shorter version of the Mets, which maybe feeds the argument a little bit for Martin Perez value play, but that's ugly. This is ugly. This is overpriced. Best thing about this game, Braves bats. Top piece. I'm going to say Braves bats, uglier Mets bats, Martin Perez on DraftKings, Perez on FanDuel, and then Zach Thornton at an overpriced point on both sides. Jake likes the Mets. Oh, it came out? All right, let's circle back real quick. Taking enough time. Why not go back a game? All right, so this is the confirmed. It's almost exactly the same. Alvarez sliding to the 5 spot, Lubob in the cleanup. That's fine. They swapped spots. Plenty of same exact read situation with them. Lubob maybe gets a little tiny tickle of additional upside for the direct link to Bichette, Lindor, Ewing. And then Jared Young in the lineup despite the lefty on the mound. 2,500. Based on the premium contact upside, Jared Young remains very, very interesting. Has outfield eligibility, which is where I want him more if I'm playing this team on FanDuel. I don't love having to use him at first base, but any lack of consistency, lack of true upside is completely offset by the price, and you're just looking for the one good batted ball event. Lefty. Matters less against the lefty like Perez, but he's made 16 wildly unsuccessful plate appearances against lefties this year. He's made 22. Actually okay plate appearances same-handed when it rounds out to the full slash line. 250, 318, 350, but only a 100 ISO, a 297 weighted on base, and an 89 WRC plus against same-handed pitching for his career. Not a very large sample, obviously. So probably a better piece than what we were looking at the bottom of the lineup. I would say Jared Young extends it by 1 spot before you get to the dregs of the lineup. The read overall is the same, though. All right. We need to hit the gas pedal a little bit here. Noah Schultz, not a great spot. Hasn't been pitching well. 6.04 ERA, 5.29 xFIP, 5.03 Sierra. Probably up here just filling this spot a little bit too early, and they're letting him work it out at the major league level. High-end pitching prospect, high-end lefty pitching prospect. Some things to like about the stuff plus ratings across a couple of the pitches. Obviously needs to work on the full arsenal and just how the pitches work with one another. Right now, giving up way too many fly balls, too many barrels, too much power overall to throw into even a diminished version of the Yankees lineup. We still do get Ben Rice, Paul Goldschmidt, Dominguez to a degree, Jazz even against a lefty here, a lefty of this quality I'm not really worried about. Spencer Jones as well with his ability to hit the ball hard. I'm not really worried about lefty against this lefty. But then you do have guys like Volpe now in the middle of the lineup is problematic to the ability of this lineup to sequence. Ali Sanchez doing the catching today from the right side. Not great. Jose Caballero from the right side, perfectly fine. He's hit 10 home runs on the season, but overall 238, 288, 376, nowhere near the consistency that one would hope for from a player like this who makes a lot of his business around stealing bases. We need to get him on base a lot more consistently, but he's an impactful enough player, and he's found a little bit of power despite not really connecting with the ball in any kind of different way overall for the season. Dominguez is interesting at just 34-28, 6 home runs, 6 steals. Another year just kind of lost between AAA, Yankees, etc., not fully finding it. We might lose the whole career at this point. The Yanks have done that multiple times. This might be the next Miguel Andujar. You see him on the Angels 3 years from now finding success. Paul Goldschmidt at 37, 3,000 has been in a bad tailspin since that outrageous run that he had earlier in the year when Judge first went out, just carrying too much weight. It's starting to really, really crack. Plenty of any given slate upside, monster upside for Paul Goldschmidt against any lefty and against a shaky lefty giving up premium contact. I love the idea of going back to Paul Goldschmidt with all the struggles. The hope would be that among people that go to the Yankees from like the middle of the board today, Goldie goes a little bit under owned for the spot. Ben Rice against anybody, absolutely 31 homers on the season. And then Max Schumann's in the leadoff role because why not? Every now and then Max can turn on one. He's getting on base at a 378 clip over 74 plate appearances, has 2 home runs, 3 stolen bases. The on base is a little bit of an outlier though. Over his full career, 459 plate appearances in 2024. He got on at a 311 clip, 213 opportunities last year, got on at a 295 while hitting below the Mendoza line last year and only coming away with 2 homers and 7 stolen bases. So I don't think anything about these 74 plate appearances is particularly real, but he is a nice cheap piece of correlated scoring to lead directly into the high quality Yankees. On DraftKings, you have multiple issues though. Schumann is only an outfielder on DK. Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt play the same position on DK. So both those things collide with lineup building pretty poorly. I think they're still usable, and maybe it makes them a little lower owned where you're just trying to pick off one of the 2 first basemen, say Jason Dominguez, and then, I'm most inclined to go to Jazz at second base, but you can make an argument for Caballero, I guess, at second. Maybe Schumann from the top in the outfield, even though he's really is just another outfielder, but this really sucks. And the fact that Schumann's only in the outfield there, he fills 4 positions on FanDuel. You also get multiple positions on Caballero, and you get Jazz at both second and third base. So the Yankees have a lot more flexibility, a lot more quality for just how they fit together with other things and how they fit together with one another on the blue site today than on the DraftKings slate. White Sox against Max Fried, one of the better run limiters on this slate. High quality pitcher. My only question is, are we getting 6 innings? We are almost certainly not getting more than 6 innings. If we get 6, even at 10,000 on FanDuel, I think Zach can, or Max rather, can pay off a high enough price, high relative to the rest of this board, but low for him price. Fully healthy Max, fully engaged is 10-5, 10-8, somewhere around there in this matchup. Sub 4 implied total for the White Sox, and love Max, by the way, at 86 on DraftKings. No real concerns there. You don't even need the quality start. Take the win bonus upside and run with it. White Sox bats against with the lefty against a super high-end suppressor of the home run ball that Max Fried has always been, a guy who induces weak and medium contact, keeps the ball down, does everything you need to do to take the home run away. That really impacts the White Sox quality here. So when we talk again about contrarian teams against some of the best pitchers, Max doesn't really offer cracks through which you can squeeze a White Sox stack. It's a lot more negative impact for them than potentially positive impact of having them at high prices, not even low prices, against one of the best pitchers on the slate. So not a great contrarian option. You do get, if you're going that way though, Incredibly high priority to get Randall Grichuk into that stack. Miguel Vargas, same thing. The two big high-impact right-handed bats from this team today, I think, would be very important. Grichuk has made a career of hitting home runs and finding quality against lefties. He's hit 9 home runs in only 157 plate appearances this year. Was on the Yankees earlier in the season. Probably a little bit of revenge in his heart if you're into that sort of thing. More to the point, just very, very cheap in the leadoff spot against the lefty. But again, Max just takes so much away. Murakami against anybody, sure. Colson Montgomery, you're not going to this team and not playing those guys. Just know that it is not in any way a good spot for them. 6.24 in the home run model for Colson, 5.56 for Murakami. Vargas having a tremendous year, 22 homers, also swiped 11 bags, 348 on base, but Max doesn't let you get to first base all that often. Low walk rate historically throughout his career. Chase Meadroth, interesting enough option back and forth. We also lose Sam Antonacci in this game with the lefty on the hill. I was hoping we would see Sammy. He's played against a fair amount of lefties lately, but he's out of the lineup against the high-quality lefty. Meadroth would be another pretty important bat if this team's going to succeed, just with the hit tool, putting the ball in play and getting himself to first base to create a little bit of havoc, because they're going to need the sequence. They're not likely to put too many balls in the seats. Braden Montgomery, mix and match piece. Everson Pereira, another former Yankee farmhand. Reasonable upside for barrels and hard hits, but not a guy we want against this pitcher. Edgar Quero and Luis Angel Acuna, mix and match pieces down toward the bottom of the lineup. Neither guy getting on base at even a 280 clip. Max on DraftKings. Yankees bats on either side. Max on FanDuel. Everything about Max Fried is great on both sides, though. Don't take that to be too much of a diminishment just because I separated it. It's just about that cheap price on DK. White Sox bats over Noah Schultz. I wouldn't really be that interested in Schultz. Even at the value price, just doesn't seem like a great spot. Value price, even diminished Yankees lineup, 465 implied total should be shouting. Let's not go to the kid who's been just bad throughout. 2 years from now, we're probably talking about Noah Schultz assuming health as like, wow, this kid is good. We want to get to this kid. Not today. David Peterson, 6,000, 6,800. Again, this is a near 100 degree. Just speaking tongues the rest of the show. This is a near 100 degree day in the St. Louis area. Greatly favors the upside for bats. That said, 67 on Liberatore and 6,000 on David Peterson on DraftKings, 68 for Peterson on FanDuel. It's going to put these guys at least somewhat in the conversation from the bargain bin, because they're two of the lackluster as they can be, two of the better options among the garbage of pitching after we get off the top couple few guys. Liberatore last time out gave up 5 earned on 9 hits over 5 1/3 at the Angels. Struck out 7 in that game. Nice little spike for strikeouts. He's done that here and there through the season. 6 strikeout day and a much better outing against the better Braves. The start before that went 6, shut them out over 6 innings, 4 hits allowed, 6 Ks and a walk. No damage. Start before that, 3 earned runs over 5 against the Cubs. Decent day against Atlanta. Maybe he just needs to pitch against Atlanta every time. 6 earned runs allowed over 5 1/3 against the Diamondbacks at the end of June. There are multiple meltdown type outings here. But every now and then, 9 strikeout day, 10 strikeout day, 9 strikeout day, 6 and 7 in the last 2. His last 4 starts have been the 6, the 7, a 3 strikeout day against the Cubs, and then a 9 strikeout day again against the Braves. Really likes pitching against Atlanta. I would not say he's off the board. Even with the conditions favoring bats, even with the Cubbies at nearly a 5-run total, with all their quality for on base, with all their ability to draw walks. He's walked 8.7%, not tragic, but it comes against just a 21.7% strikeout rate, an exact match for this lineup's collective strikeout rate on the season. That's helped greatly by Nico at 8.3, by the way. You do have multiple guys, 26%. You got a 30% down here. So there are plenty of strikeout targets, creating a little back and forth type situation. Total vacuum, just talking about this game, it's absolutely Cubs bats. And the expectation is that they're going to destroy Liberatore here. But talking about the full slate at price, so on and so forth, you can see he doesn't project well, but he's in that conversation. Peterson, last time we saw him, 6 2/3 against the Tigers, 3-hit shutout, 4 strikeouts, and a walk. I did mention since he's gotten stretched out for starts, he's had a little bit of bumpiness in the home run numbers, but it's amounted to just a 2.22% rate over 12 starts, handful of relief outings, 89 innings on the season. Last year, in 168 and 2/3, 30 starts, a full season, just a 1.52% home run rate allowed because he kept the ball to a 4.3 degree average launch. Year before, 1.57% home runs on a 7.2 degree average launch. That was over 121 innings in 21 starts. So just because it's a short sample of him limiting home runs to a fair degree, keeping the ball down to a fair degree for this year, don't think that that's not a ongoing attribute for this pitcher, because it very, very much is. So he has them knocked down. Even Jordan Walker coming in not even halfway to the magic number in the home run model, again on a day where conditions greatly favor hitting, greatly favor the idea of driving the ball. It's just the trajectory that's really going to be impacted by Peterson. He does allow some hard hits. He does allow some exit velo, but he's consistently good at inducing ground balls and generally keeping the ball to a low trajectory. And it impacts the home run upside. It impacts the overall quality for the Cards as a stack. And it leads me to David Peterson maybe being the value pitcher of the day at just 6,000, 6,800. Again, you can see on this ugly pitching day, he's here. EMI for a little bit more money on either site. Equal opportunity, let's say. Urania probably overpriced, projecting out similarly to everybody in the value bin. And then otherwise you're just paying up to the top tier. So Peterson kind of stands out for quality, as bad as the hitting conditions might be here. Cubs bats. PCA, monster price tag, monster season underway, 460 excellent plate appearances. No brainer if you're going to Cubs. 6.49 in the home run model. Makes some sense. Liberator's been mostly bad on the season, 4.12% home runs allowed on a 15.5 degree average launch. Last year, just allowed 2.93% home runs. The year before, 3%. Year before that, just 1.82. That's why I stopped short. I was going to say it should be a little bit higher, but lefty, Liberator, a little bit of better history than outside of just this year. So 6.49, maybe about right. You do see the 10 plus on right-handed Seiya Suzuki, Bregman, and Carson Kelly, a little bit lighter than that. And then Michael Busch also popping for a little bit of power quality. 9.9% barrel, 40.6% hard hit on the season for Busch. Greatly diminished from where he was last year, but still a dangerous bat. And he's gotten awfully cheap for the power upside. So I wouldn't sleep on Busch there. Kelly is a very reasonable catcher play on DraftKings at 34. A lot less relevant to the FanDuel slate, particularly if you're getting to Michael Busch. You don't necessarily want to double those two guys up through the catcher util spot. You can. It's not unplayable that way, but it's probably not ideal lineup building. But Kelly, a catcher for a very cheap price over here. That's a high-quality bat. 275 pretty good plate appearances, a 106 WRC+. A little bit of thump in the bat available as well. Better for barrels and hard hits last year than he's been so far this year. Bregman, not bad, but also not good. 234, 331, 351, just a 93 WRC+. And maybe we are trending toward bad territory now. He's been okay for counting stats, scoring some runs, driving some in, created opportunities created above him in the lineup. Just 10 home runs. Needs to turn the power back on, I think, if he's going to hit like this overall. But he does still get on base. He is still low strikeout, high walk. So they're interesting DFS qualities, if nothing else. Nico having a bad year, but very, very cheap for what we know the quality looks like there when he gets right. So that's an interesting mixer at worst at second base. Ian Happ, quality in the outfield for on base, a little bit of power in that bat as well. 18 homers. Had a bad month or so, needs to get re-engaged in the season. Dansby Swanson can surge like crazy here and there. 66 runs, 61 ribbies, 16 homers, 14 steals. Great for counting stats across an inconsistent season. Nothing predictive at all about those counting stats, but we've seen Dansby Swanson perform at such high levels over the years in terms of his premium contact that the 307 xWOBA under a 311 actual is obvious underperformance. There is a higher quality player there, and the price is right at shortstop. Miguel Amaya, just a mixer at catcher. On the card side, they're easily playable against David Peterson. 465 implied total. Vegas certainly thinks so. Conditions favor hitting. If you're not using Peterson for value in any given lineup, sure, Cards bats. But again, know that he very realistically does have the knack for taking the home run ball away a little bit. Has been a blip for power against him in a recent stretch as he's gotten stretched back out to starting, though. JJ Weatherholt, 53-33, having a great year. 15 homers, 10 steals, a 349 on base, creating runs 10% better than average by WRC plus. And I love the additional 15 points of xWOBA that's staring us in the face there. He's technically been underperforming while being very good. Jordan Walker's breakout campaign continues. A little bit of a dip over the last month or so in consistency, but the peaks are still there and the consistency will come back. 58-38, entirely worthwhile. Herrera illustrated his quality at the catcher spot for such a cheap price on DraftKings. 31, very playable on FanDuel as well, especially getting Alec Burleson off first base and into the outfield. Doesn't have to double book the first base util spot to do that with those two players, so I like that upside. Burleson lose a little quality for take some home run ability away, the lefty of the thing. 15 homers on the season, though, having a great year. 126 WRC plus and a tremendous 383 xWOBA, technically underperforming by almost 30 points of weighted on base. Mason Wynn, just a mix and match guy. Jose Finnerman, just a mix and match guy. Lars Nootbaar, plenty fine. Lose a little bit of power upside for Nootbaar, but the on-base skills should be there against David Peterson here. So in play at 3,600, 2,900, not bad prices for a high-quality outfielder. Blaze Jordan for just 28 on both sites at third base, potentially sneaky down the bottom of the lineup. Just one home run, not a ton of success in 113 plate appearances that went awfully fast since that promotion. But you'll note, 7.4% barrels, 44.7% hard hits. The barrel rate's not outstanding, but it's adequate. The hard hit rate is decent. And it comes with 13.3% strikeouts and 3.5% walks that are just directly connected to everything that he did in the minors on his way up. Even though he hasn't quite gotten there, that's a really interesting hitter to keep an eye on. And he makes it into lineups against the lefty at 2,800 if you're building with this team. And then a guy I skipped over because he's very interesting and I wanted to stop on him for a minute. Even with the idea of Peterson limiting home runs, Nelson Velasquez hits the ball so hard when he gets an opportunity against the lefty that if you're going to this team and hoping to find the one guy that can hit a home run that's not named Jordan Walker, Nelson Velasquez is my next man up. 3.01 in the model today. The consistency's nothing to speak of. 4 home runs in 76 plate appearances so far on the season. You're just looking for that one good batted ball event, the one good pitch, or the one fat pitch where Peterson makes a mistake that leads to the slight uptick in home runs recently. Nelson Velasquez could be your guy at a great price there. Cubs bats, Cards bats, Peterson, Liberatore. All 4 things are in play. Again, in a vacuum, I'd much rather have the bats, but the pitchers are both probably going to be a little bit necessary to full lineup building for value. Stros and the Halos. Who were you guys talking about on the number 2 DK value? Was that the Mets? Yep. Number 2 by value on that DraftKings full slate. I think that's fair. There are still multiple multi-time all-stars and high-quality bats in that lineup, and they're facing Martin Perez. Let's not exaggerate the downside of the Mets just because they've been mostly bad and struggling through the season. On a lot of different slates, that's a focus spot. It's just this pitching slate is so bad that there are many other better spots, but they're, I think, more important to your DraftKings board. But they're playable across both sides. What about Urena? Kind of a good starting point. 22% strikeout, but erratic, 12.4% walk. He is good at finding swinging strikes, though, 11.8% swinging strikes. What he's very good at so far is limiting the home run ball, inducing weak and medium contact on the ground or on a low trajectory. 6.1 degree average launch so far, just 33.2% hard hits, 86.9 miles an hour of exit velo. So the decline in home run numbers for the Astros, even on Jordan Alvarez, is pretty real. Alvarez can obviously take one deep against anybody. He's hit 34 this season, but only 5.69 in the home run model is noteworthy for him. That is not to say that Urena is safe here. The Astros are drawing a 4.33 implied total. They're a relatively low strikeout team, particularly among their very best hitters. There's plenty of potential for the Astros to do their thing and find their way to quality via sequencing, and then get to the bullpen of this team, which is just, tee off opportunity. But Urena has been good enough that you could consider him at 83 on DraftKings. At 93 on FanDuel on the deeper pitching slate where I only need one bite at the apple, there's enough working against Urena that, as usable as he is, I don't know how necessary he is. Maybe it makes sense a little bit against some, the Brightishes of the world, the Peyton Tolleys of the world from this price, and probably low or, equally low ownership to Tolley, probably lower ownership than Kyle Bradish. But again, I prefer Bradish. I think Tolley's probably the truly more talented of the two pitchers. And I'd probably rather tackle this version of the Athletics lineup, ballpark aside, than this version of the Astros. Imai, another messy spot. 68-76. He's striking out 27.5% so far on a 12.9% swinging strike rate. Another guy who can find outstanding swing and miss, but it doesn't exactly come because any of his stuff is measuring out great. He's below average across all 3+ categories, including way below average in stuff plus and pitching plus, and it's across every single one. It's not like he's got one good outlier pitch that's working really, really well. All of his pitches are rating out poorly. He's given up a 10.9% barrel on a more fly ball oriented trajectory, 45.6% hard hits, nearly 90 miles an hour of exit velo. Lucky to be at that 3.50 in terms of the home run model. And you get one of the better hard hitting teams in baseball, at least among 3 or 4 of these guys, in Zach Neto, Mike Trout, Jorge Soler, and Joe Adell. The results are all over the place for those guys. Not a one of them has even 20 home runs with some missed time factored in. But this is a dangerous home run hitting team. So the downside for Imai plays directly into what these guys do well, but so does his upside because he's a guy who can miss bats, and this team can certainly go up there and swing and miss. So there's a ton of back and forth. I'm not trying to fence sit this one. Like I said, maybe it was in Discord earlier in the day, we used the Marlins against Imai for all these reasons the other day. He went out and had a very, very strong DFS day, 40-some-odd FanDuel points, 6 innings of 1-run ball, 4 hits allowed, struck out 8, and walked 3. Start prior to that, just 3 2/3 against Washington, 2 earned runs on 4 hits, struck out 3, walked 3, and was out of the game. 5 earned runs over an inning and a third against the Twins the outing before that. But prior to that one, back-to-back games, 11 strikeouts against the Guardians, 10 strikeouts against the Tigers. So the Angels do profile pretty similar to those two teams. Plenty of potential for Imai to go out there, do his thing, find those unexpected Ks. But if he walks a few too many guys and then that one bad pitch that could lead to the long ball could put the Angels on the board a little bit, could knock him off the value board a little bit. But he does have at least a little price-based room to make those mistakes, more so on DraftKings where the quality start isn't necessary. 76 on FanDuel, you could probably coast through for the even without the quality start, as long as he's finding the strikeouts for you along the way. And you really only have 2 big-time pitchers to worry about as far as that scoring goes. So there's enough value that Imai is on the board on both sides, uncomfortably as it may be. That said, bats on both sides of this game, easily in play, easy to play. Jeremy Pena at 45, 35, 11 home runs, having a good year when he's been available, 373 on base. Got himself as part of the trade market, but the Astros reportedly going to stand pat, maybe even add some pieces, try and make a push for the playoffs. Really, really tight AL race across playoffs. 65-44, not a bad price for Jordan Alvarez, looking for not only the AL Triple Crown, but potentially in the mix for a MLB Triple Crown, which is wild. Would be the first since, I think it was Mickey. Isaac Paredes at 38, 3,000. Upside piece for his on-base and correlated scoring abilities. If memory serves, this is not a good ballpark for his power. You can go check it on StatCast if you want to. I'm not going to take the time. Jose Altuve having an up and down season. Does have 12 home runs and 351 plate appearances, but just a 93 WRC plus. Low end as far as the contact, low end as far as the weighted on base numbers. It's easy to see the finish line in Jose's future at this point. Lamont Wade at 29, 28 is interesting. First base and outfield, a little bit more quality maybe than just another outfielder type. I'd rather have him there than at first base. 328 on base and 2 home runs across 67 plate appearances. But we've seen good stretches of Lamont Wade exploiting bad pitching, getting on base, drawing walks, getting himself to first base, and paying off a little bit of power upside with premium contact as well. It's been a minute, but it's in there. So that's a playable piece. Christian Walker at 38, 3,000, nice and cheap for the true power upside. 20 home runs on the board, still making good contact. The consistency is lacking. Jainer Diaz, 35, 28, 6 home runs on the board in 199 plate appearances in a season that's otherwise been better forgotten. Multi-time 20 home run hitter, though. Cheap catcher bat who in previous seasons has been very good at limiting strikeout, limiting walk. He's actually doing that in a consistent way still this year, but has been better at finding premium contact in that. So the quality of those batted balls has been way down this year. but any given slate upside is a cheap catcher. More important on DraftKings. Lucas Spence and Cam Smith, mix and match pieces. Cam Smith was the guy that we were talking about being next year's Jordan Walker potentially. Not a bad call, whoever made that call. 10 stolen bases on the year, just a 284 on base, 206, 284, 363, but 13 home runs, 10 steals, and a lot of premium contact to get excited about going forward. It's an interesting player. 2,800, 2,700 against Wilber Urania. The downside there would be taking the long ball away from Cam Smith would expose the downside for the lack of consistency. So today's not the day. But again, going into drafts next year, when you get into, the pick like 200 type level or the ranking like 200 type level, he's going to be an interesting name that I will have ranked higher than a lot of places. Neto and Trout, your top priority. Angels bats 47-52, 36-37. Fine price to pay against this pitcher if we're going to Angels, and they are an interesting lower-end contrarian type team against a pitcher that people probably are going to get out over their skis as far as exposure, just for where he rates for cost today. So I'm interested in some Angels to maybe do some damage to that part of the field. Neto's hit 19 home runs, stolen 13 bases. Trout has 18 on the board, a 398 on base. Neto also potentially part of the trade market. Trout probably not, but maybe. Who knows? Nolan Shanuel at 31-28, 6 home runs, 355 on base, more of a table setter. Fine in the 3 spot, but you'd rather have him leading off ahead of Trout and Neto and correctly orient this lineup. But say Levy, 35-28 for Jorge Soler. He's an important guy to have behind Shanuel so that you can get a little bit of power uptick. He's hit 12 in 344 plate appearances. He's making more interesting contact than the results would speak to. He's had much, much better years on similar contact in years past. The consistent hard hitting home run upside Jorge Soler is mostly gone, but the price has come down along with that decline. 35-28 is perfectly fine to pay for him. Vaughn Grissom, most interesting attributes, probably that 40% hard hit rate. It's just okay. 320 on base, very, very average stats across the board, and a point below average by WRC+. Josh Lowe, just a mixer. Joe Adell's the interesting bat down lineup. The contact is way, way down this season, so is the consistency. 16 home runs, but there's a lot of right-handed thunder in that bat to throw at Tatsuya Imai here, and then hopefully get into the bullpen early and really get going. Denzer Guzman, Tyler Heineman, mix and match guys down toward the bottom. Guzman maybe flashed a little bit of interesting quality for batted balls, but it's already gone away completely in the slash line, in the entire stat line here. All 4 things in this game are equal for different reasons. I don't love the pricing on Urania to make him the number 1 piece. I don't love the home run opportunity for the Astros. I don't want to make it Imai, and it can't be the Angels. Urania, even though I disagree with the prices. It's probably Urania on DraftKings, Urania on FanDuel, Astros bats. Imai for value, even though he's going to be popular. Angels bats. Maybe should have put Imai above the Astros bats. Either way, all 4 things in that game were very close. Red Sox and the A's. We've talked about this one in reference to it a couple times. Peyton Tolley, 8,800, 10-2. A little bit overpriced maybe on FanDuel because of the ballpark situation. The A's pulling just a 4.15 implied total against him, though. No Shea Langoliers in the lineup. No Kurtz in the lineup. Definitely a diminished version of these A's. I'm perfectly fine with playing Peyton Tolley. And honestly, even the 10-2, without the high-quality bats, the best player in the A's lineup today is Tyler Soderstrom. Much as I like Tyler Soderstrom, that's a diminishment in quality. So the ballpark can't do everything. I'm fine with 10-2 on Tolley on FanDuel, 12.8% swinging, 26.2% strikeout rate on the season, 3.31 ERA, 3.94 xFIP. You would have been concerned, and there is still a little bit of lingering concern around just the fly ball trajectory in this ballpark. He's been making it work, though. He's been missing premium contact, avoiding and inducing weak and medium contact on those fly balls. So a lot of pop outs, just, upper extreme launch angle, but not leading to home runs. The Sacramento Sutter Field here could have a little bit of impact on that, but particularly at 88 on DraftKings, this is now one of the more high priority pitchers on the slate. Going the other direction, Perkins. The most interesting thing there is I do think he's more talented under the surface, like we talked about the other day. I think it was against the Twins, I want to say, when the Twins were pulling a 5+ implied total. That was on the road. That was not in this ballpark. There's more quality showing for the Red Sox at that 5.46, and this is less relevant than it was the other day, but I do still think it's worth talking through. Perkins misses bats. 26.7% strikeout, 12.5% swinging strike rate. He's pitched to a 6.75 ERA because he's had a bit of an issue with home run balls. 3.86% home run rate allowed, and in some key spots with runners on base. You'll note the 4.15 xFIP and the even more impressive 3.58 Sierra under the surface. He's pitched to an 18.2 strikeout minus walk rate. So this is a kid who's actually got a lot going for him under the surface. Some of that work came in relief. He's been bumpier in full starts. And this ballpark does not favor pitching in any way. This is not an endorsement of Perkins as a piece on the mound. 65, I don't think you want to go there. 63 on FanDuel, I don't see it. This is not to take the Red Sox off the board at all. But I do think this is quarter run too high. That's where they ought to be. Negligible difference. You could argue it. I mean, it's silly to get into this in some ways. But to me, on the full slate, the Nats are actually the leader in terms of run. That might have already changed. It might not change. I think they're just not quite giving Perkins his due. And he could surprise. Odds are the Red Sox go out, score 5+ runs, bend the day to their will, and look as good as they look on the Vegas board. But this is an overrated team. This is a team that is getting action in Vegas, pushing totals. I think they're a little bit over the mark here. So it wouldn't at all surprise me going the other direction to see them, only score 4 or 5 runs. Doesn't equal a good day for Perkins, but it doesn't equal a good day for what will be a very popular Red Sox stack here. And he is better than he's getting credit for. Go to the Sox bats, though, makes a ton of sense. Playing in a minor league park against a pitcher who's been pitching terribly all season. See, I can do it the other way, too. Anthony Siegler, mix and match guy up at the top of the lineup, if we're being honest. 265, 333, 441. Part of the success lately, but a 324 xWOB under a 338 actual, a nothing contact hitter. Just a low strikeout guy who's succeeded on some recent balls in play. Sedan Rafaela, counting stats, but overperformance throughout the season. A 281 xWOB under a 331 actual. We've seen him crater in the final 2 months of the season several different times in his career, and wouldn't be a surprise at all to see that happen now. The two good bats in the lineup are Willie Abreu and Wilson Contreras. Those are absolute priorities if you're going to this team. That's where the power is. That's where the quality is. Masataka Yoshida is a line drive hitter. If those guys ahead of him are getting on base and at least Wilson Contreras gets on at a 388 clip to set the table for his pal here, Yoshida could definitely drive him in. He could also continue to set the table further down the lineup. Then you're talking about guys like a terribly underperforming for his talent, Jarren Duran, who has been very real in years past and is at least still providing counting stats. Runs and RBIs, 13 homers, 15 steals. He's just at a 198, 257 front end of his slash line. That's crazy uncharacteristic. He's got a 10.3% barrel rate, at least, to mix in. So if we're just looking for lefty pop, I would so much rather have Jarren Duran than Caleb Durbin, the guy that people will go to in that equation. 10 home runs, 11 steals for Durbin. A little bit of an uptick over the last month, certainly. He's found the ability to pull the ball a little bit more in Fenway Park, bang balls off the monster, hit the occasional one over it. But he doesn't actually have real power. 2.5% barrel, 27.9% hard hit. This is just a low strikeout, low walk rate, mix and match quality contact hitter who's slashing 237, 302, 393 for the full season. He has a 306 weighted on base and a 282 xWOBA. That does not speak to underlying upside. That speaks to overperformance, and particularly overperformance in the recent stretch. It was the same thing in his overrated campaign last year. 506 plate appearances, had Rookie of the Year buzz, got himself traded for a very talented left-handed pitcher. 11 home runs, 18 steals in 506 plate appearances. An okay slash, 256, 334, 387, but it's exposed by a 319 weighted on base that's below average by 100th of a point. And an even further below average, 312 xWOBA. He's got speed. He's got the ability to direct the ball. He could be one of these guys that can defy X-Woba to a degree, but that doesn't typically equal a monster fantasy player. It's an overrated piece who's going to be too popular. He's not expensive. You're not paying a tax. Once you start paying tax for the overperformance, that's where we get really concerned. Durbin's still super usable if you're going to the Red Sox. Andrew Monasterio, Connor Wong, if they're in the lineup, they're mix and match pieces at best. On the A's side, you can maybe make a case for targeting Peyton Tolley. Again, if we're looking for cracks, he doesn't have all that much visible, but I would say that this in this ballpark would be the crack, the fly ball trajectory. That's really the only thing you can make the case for targeting, and he doesn't allow much exit velocity behind it. They're just lazy fly balls, cans of corn to the outfielders. But maybe that's how you sneak through with the A's. So if we're thinking again about some of the better pitchers on the day, the ballpark, the fly ball trajectory work against Tolley here, make the A's more appealing when we mix them in against in with the Marlins and the other teams we've talked about facing some of the better pitchers of the day on an ugly pitching slate. Jacob Wilson would be a part of that via the hit tool, the correlated scoring upside. Not a great way to fill shortstop, though, across the full slate. Soderstrom, absolute top priority player in this lineup, 47 3,000. Cheap enough, but lefty also not going to really help. Where's he been lefty on the season? Oh, man, it's 6:08. We got a 6:40 start time. I got to get out of here. I got to get the site updated. Real quick. Too late. 6 of his home runs have come left-handed against the lefty, rather. Much, much better against righties, but at least a little bit of power against the lefty, but nothing that's going to help you. Jonah Heim, Colby Thomas, a couple guys who will be hitting from the right side along with Tommy White at fair prices. You get some barrel upside through there. You get the opportunity of the fly ball to home run rate to pick it off in this ballpark, but those are guys specifically, they're going to need a little bit of help to succeed against this pitcher. And then down toward the bottom of the lineup, McNeil's entirely skippable. Alika Williams, same thing. The guys to focus on down there would be Henry Bolte from the right side, Lawrence Butler from the left. Butler, former 2020 guy struggling this season. Bolte, an interesting up-and-comer with a little bit of power, a lot of speed, and a fair spot. I would rather have Bolte in the 9 spot to wrap back around to the top, though. Tolley, Sox bats, A's bats. Wouldn't play Perkins, but don't be shocked if he limits the Sox a little bit more than we might be expecting from the DFS community. All right, we're going to make quick time through this last game. Apologies, the time got away from me. I forgot we have a half hour basically till lock on the FanDuel slate. Brewers are the more interesting offense. The 4.54 implied total against Tyler Mahle speaks to that. Mahle striking out 21.4%, but walking too many, 5.31 ERA. A lower, more respectable xFIP in Sierra, but hasn't been good in quite a while. Has been giving up a little bit of home run on a moderate fly ball trajectory, moderate contact. Full faith in the Brewers just for sequencing, if not power. On the other side, Brandon Sproat doesn't really look great. He is helping suppress the Giants. They're pulling just a 4-run total in this pitcher-friendly park. They haven't been great throughout the season. They've seen a little bit of an uptick recently when Eldridge got promoted. They got a shot in the arm. Devers came back to life a little bit. There's some appeal going to the Giants. They'll be fairly low owned with that low total at the end of the night. Sproat, 24% strikeouts, but too many walks. 4.33 xFIP, 4.29 Sierra under that 5+ ERA, but is giving up a little bit of premium contact, a little bit of power on a fly ball trajectory. So maybe some Devers, maybe some Eldridge mixed in there, some Elliot Ramos for the hard hits, the barrel rate. There's a little pocket of power that could get interesting on these Giants. So it's mostly about the bats in this late game. The Brewers, their quality speaks for itself. 46.34 for Yelich. Down season for him overall. Great price to pay for that player from the left side in the outfield. Jackson Chourio is a star. Honestly, probably not expensive enough. Bryce Turang at 5,036. Great way to fill second base. Counting stats galore from both those players across all 4 major categories. William Contreras, not a bad way to fill catcher at 41. 10 home runs. Solid slash line. Great on base option. Hitting ahead of Garrett Mitchell and Jake Bowers. 2 premium lefty bats with tons of barrel, tons of premium contact, 18 and 8 home runs and tons of success, 135, 124 WRC plus respectively, and both guys getting on base at 360 plus clips. Those guys set the table for Cooper Pratt, Luis Lara, and Joey Ortiz at the bottom of the lineup. This is I was going to say 9, but Joey Ortiz isn't really that good. This is an 8-man, very playable lineup. Don't sleep on Luis Lara. Interesting up-and-coming prospect, 303, 400, 424 with a stolen base over his first 40 plate appearances. A lot of hit tool, a lot of speed there, and maybe a little bit of emergent power. On the Giants side, Luis Arias is the only one in this lineup. No Young Lee today. Luis Arias, tons of batting average, good table setter at the top of the lineup. That said, he's entirely skippable at that 44 at second base. You don't want him at first base. 29 is okay on FanDuel. He's a mix and match piece ultimately who's here for correlated scoring. If I'm going to go to the Giants, I'm going to try and hunt some of that power against Brandon Sproat, I think. So give me more of Elliot Ramos. Give me more of Eldridge. 9 home runs for Ramos in 275, 10 for Eldridge in 256, double-digit barrels, 50+% hard hit rates. Looking a lot like Rafi Devers, who comes in at just 41.34. FanDuel got the price back up. DraftKings did not. That's a key piece on DK. 22 homers, looking a lot like Devers across the board. Casey Schmidt, the most expensive DK player on this team, but he's backing it up. Double-digit barrel rate, excellent hard hit, 3,300 across 4 positions for value on FanDuel. He's hit 21 home runs now. Sub 300 on base isn't great, but he's making up for it in the power. Drew Gilbert, Grant McCray, Jesus Rodriguez going down the lineup. Mix and match pieces. McCray comes in at the min price on DraftKings. Maybe that makes something work for you. Willie Adames continues to be the most interesting player down there. 18 home runs, a lot of lurking power, but crazy inconsistency out of Willie gives you a lot of zeros in with your good days. One last time. Sorry to fly through that last game quickly. Did not notice the time. S. Wolf Deb asked, who is the cash game pitcher on FanDuel? We don't talk a lot of cash game for baseball. I think you'd probably just want to spend for Zach Wheeler, to be quite honest. There's enough value at the plate that it should be pretty clearly through that. I don't want to endorse any of those cheap guys for that. Usually I'd be looking to get to a cheaper guy for cash, but I don't see it. I don't talk a lot of cash though, Wolf. Sorry about that. But yeah, Zach Wheeler, you're clear top of the board, no weather threats in that game, et cetera, et cetera. We talked about this slate up and down as far as the ugliness of this pitching board. So 2.5 hours deep. Let me just punch out on you guys. Really appreciate everybody. Make sure you come back for the pitching picks contest. Got to pick a quality start plus 8 or more strikeouts. Put that in a comment after the show. 1st to 5 correct picks over the next couple of weeks wins a free month at rotoscouts.com. Ongoing free first weeks on a weekly. Promo code try me, all one word, capital T, capital M, for a free first week on a weekly plan. Go check that out. You can get these projections for tonight for free. No commitment required. That said, good luck out there tonight, gang. Somebody go win something. Share those results at Rotoscouts on Twitter or in the free premium Discord when you do. And I'll have the projections updated on the site momentarily. So just hang out for a minute. You'll have your stuff to work with for the last half hour just in a second. Go get them, gang. We'll be back tomorrow for more. Later.